New midday hang. It's Annie and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We are all together once again in our Odyssey studios overlooking still hot San Diego.
Slightly less hot.
Slightly less hot San Diego. Annie Halbrand's here. I'm Craig Elsten. You just heard Braden Suprenant. We're all ready for you, rolling from here till 2 o'clock when Gwen and Chris will check in. Tony from Seattle. Of course, Mr. Chris Ello and Matt Scraby here in studio. And then what's our game time today? 6:40 or 7:10 for Padres Mariners?
6:40.
6:40. Everyone's 6:40 these days.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer it.
I prefer that too. Actually, I prefer 6:10, but beggars can't be choosers. We can compromise somewhere.
6:10 is so great.
It was one of the best things about the COVID season.
It was so awesome.
No lie.
It was amazing.
No lie. One of the best parts of the COVID
Yeah,
season.
for sure.
Nonetheless, that means Sam Levitt in at 5:40 with your EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show 6:40. It is Yu Darvish. It is George Kirby. It is Game 3 of the Vetter Cup. Padres backs against the wall in the Vetter Cup. They need to win both to pull a draw out in the Vetter Cup this year. They could also use to win both to stay and solidify their wild card standing, Annie.
Bigger stakes there than the Vetter Cup, although we do love the Vetter Cup. But Seattle actually, too, trying to win as well. Like they're trying to get to that final wild card spot. Still a little bit of a stretch for them. They've been in such a slide since the All-Star break, but still in reach. So they're gonna be fighting too.
100%. Hey. 3 weeks left. Everything crystallizes now. You know, we've spent all year speculating, and then you go, well, what if? There's so much time. Who knows? This and that. But now we kind of know. We don't exactly know, but we kind of know. There's 17 games for the Padres, and there's generally 18 games left for their opposition. San Diego pretty much is one game further down the track than everybody else. Padres are a half game ahead of Arizona. Both teams have 64 losses. They're tied in the loss column. They are now a game and a half over the hottest team in baseball, the New York Mets, who won yesterday. I like to do the old air quotes from Heathers. How did that happen? Wild pitch pass ball back-to-back in the 8th inning by Toronto, giving New York the tie, giving New York the lead.
Hey, sometimes things roll your way. We've seen it with the Padres a lot this season. Sometimes you're in that kind of a stretch. Things go your way.
And it's all gone the Mets' way. They've won 10 of their last 11. New York is a game and a half behind the Padres, but you need to remember the Mets have the tiebreaker over San Diego, so any tie scenario, the Mets wind up ahead of you. So they're a game and a half, but that game and a half is pretty sketchy. And then they have a 2.5 game lead over Atlanta. Atlanta lost a makeup game yesterday to Cincinnati. 1-0. Nick Martinez, 7 shutty for San Diego. Thank you, old friend. Nick Martinez doing the Padres' work from afar. And that loss really crystallizes where the Padres are in terms of relation to the playoff cut line, right? Because you've got the tiebreaker over Atlanta. And we always thought that was going to be important. And now it's oh so important because whatever win total the Padres finish, Atlanta has to go one higher. So very simply, if the Padres essentially 500 it from here, go 9-8, one game over, they'll get to 90 wins. That means the Braves have to go 13-5 in their last games to get to 91 wins because they have to get to 91 if you're at 90. So 9-8, Braves have to go 13-5. That's doable. We've seen it done. We've seen the Padres do it. If we were on the other side, we'd say we can do it. But that Braves team has been pushed to the absolute edge with guys hurt, guys coming back, guys battling through. Do they have enough to get to the finish line? What if the Padres do pretty well? If they go 11-6, they get to 92-70. Now you're in good shape to keep both the NL East teams behind you, because then the Mets would have to go 13-5 to catch you, which would then pass you. So getting into a nice little roll here, 3 weeks to go. Seattle, San Francisco this week, two teams still alive technically. The Mariners still alive because the Twins have been free-falling the last week. So Seattle should play these two games like they are playoff games. And to be honest with you, Annie, that is exciting to me because when the Padres face a team that's revved up and ready to go, they usually answer that bell. It seems to be when the mind drifts a little bit for San Diego that they get into the trouble we saw last weekend.
Yeah, and they had a nice little day off yesterday that kind of sets them up again to come out the gate hot, come out the gate knowing what's at stake here. Probably saw the results of a few of those games that you just mentioned last night and saw that they could now take a little bit of ground, not against the Mets, but against some of these other teams. And I think that they're in a decent spot, the Padres, because for them not to make the playoffs, 3 teams would have to pass them.
2.
I mean, 2.
2.
Well,
Well,
no,
3.
3.
Yeah, you're right. You're
there's
right.
There's 4 chairs and there's 3.
Yeah.
No, there's 3 chairs and there's 4 teams
Right.
playing musical chairs.
But, I mean, Arizona is right there with us, right? So, but I feel you. Yeah, they'd have to pass you. They'd
My
have to
girl math-
actually pass you.
Okay.
No, you're right.
Okay.
You're right.
But
'Cause that would put us
they'd have
7th.
to drop out of that little cut line by. Yeah, yeah. You're gonna make the play even if you're not the top wild card seed. You're gonna be the 2nd or the 3rd.
Yeah. Well,
You're
the
gonna,
way
you're gonna be in the playoffs unless 3 teams do better than you from here on out.
plain and simple, do better than Atlanta, you make the playoffs. Done.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about anyone else. Do better than Atlanta, you make the playoffs.
There you go. Exactly.
At a minimum of a 6 seed, you make the playoffs. Now, you want to finish 4th and host in the first round, you're going to need 11 or 12 wins down the stretch. I do believe that because the Mets continue to roll. I mean, can they fall apart in the last 3 weeks? Of course.
Yes.
They've got 7 games against the Phillies. They got 3 games against the Braves. But guess what? Those teams are going, we've got 7 games against the Mets. We've got 3 games against the Mets. Mets are the hottest team in the league right now.
Yeah.
So
it's obviously better to be at the Padres spot than it is to be at either the Braves or the Mets because one is, they're honestly not all that far away, but they are far away. I mean, they are like at least separated, right, by 2 games or 1 game or wherever you are. But I think that the Mets also playing the Braves for 3. I mean, one of those teams got to lose. So if they kind of hover around that bottom spot, someone could push the other one out right there too.
absolutely. It's all right there. Like, okay, you want to finish 4th, you have to outpace all 3 of those teams. You want to finish 6th, you have to outpace one of those teams. And 5th, obviously, is just where you would fall in the race if you try to, if you go gung-ho, but one team gets past you, which absolutely could happen. The weird thing is, to me, that for weeks now, it has seemed inevitable that the Padres and Diamondbacks, the 2 hottest teams, would face each other in the first round of the playoffs. But the Padres lost a little steam, and last week, the Diamondbacks lost a little steam. The Mets are steam rolling. And suddenly, the idea of a 2024 wild card round, Padres at Mets, Citi Field, New York, has entered the chat as a possibility at the end of the year. Or Padres Mets, Petco Park. These things have entered the chat as a real possibility. If the Diamondbacks slump over the next week, they will be passed by the Mets unless New York, all of a sudden steps on a rake, which I don't think they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is there's still, how many games? 17, 18?
17. 17 for us, 18 for them.
Okay, I mean, there's still nothing's locked up. Anything can happen, right? And it doesn't even need to be like 3 in a row or 3 losses in a row or 3 wins in a row or whatever. I mean, this can happen. This can be a slow bleed that takes you all the way to the last week of the season and you're fighting it out for that final spot or that final seeding. If it's the final seeding, I think, hey, you just want to be in the dance. You don't want to be left off the dance floor when the music stops there, right? But for the Padres, I know that their goals are bigger. You had such a great stretch coming out of the All-Star break. You definitely would want to either hold that division leader spot where the Dodgers are, which, they're up by a good 5 games right now, right? Or be the top wild card spot and kind of dictate that home field advantage. However, look, the Padres will say they've done it all year. They've played, on the road, at home, extra innings, down this guy, down that guy. And that's kind of been what they've hung their hat on, is that they've been battle tested in all these scenarios, and they've been able to still play some of their best baseball. So I think you get in the playoffs. Yeah, there are some benefits to the seeding, of course, but you get in, anything can happen. And I guess maybe, the Mets surging now, that's the thing. Are all these teams going to stay in their same? It's very unlikely that they're all going to just stay in that same pace that they're all playing right now for the final 3 weeks of the season. Like, it can happen, but baseball is finicky, and it has other plans sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Spent a whole month telling us you guys are the best in town. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, you could still miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
Don't make me panic. Well, we've got a lot of thoughts along these ways because 17 games to go, Padres in a decent spot. What changes for San Diego to the better is if that starting rotation changes to the better and locks in and starts to put up the type of performances that allows the Padres to take a lead. That's the thing that you really want to see as we barrel toward the postseason. I get it. If we're down 3-0 in the second inning of Game 1 of the wild card series, we're all going to say the same thing. Oh, we got them right where we want them, But history, a century plus of history indicates, and by the way, across all sports, in all functions worldwide, that if you take the lead, you're more likely to win than you are if you fall behind. Padres have bucked the odds so many times this year, over 30 times this year they have done it, but I'd love to see a little bit more of a clinical, take the lead, let's go, lock it down, as opposed to the scrambling Padres that, they know how to scramble, but they've had to scramble a lot.
No doubt about it. And this is a team where if you do get a lead and you are aggressive and you are able to capitalize on that, the Mariners, while they have some of the best pitching in the major leagues, they are terrible, or they have been terrible this season at hitting. And now I say that knowing that they did beat the Padres twice at Petco Park, right? And one of those was a 8-run, I think, situation.
Well, I was at that game. That was Major versus Gilbert.
Oh, okay.
That didn't work out well.
Yeah, so that's a little context there. That's, I think, helpful. But yeah, I mean, look, the Mariners are last in the league in batting average. I mean, they've really struggled offensively, and that's been their storyline all season. They've had great pitching, but they haven't been able to capitalize with the offense. And so if you can get a lead and you're the Padres and your pitching is still pretty darn good, rivals, I think, what the Mariners have most days. So you could be able to shut that down. And you got Darvish on the mound today, Michael King tomorrow, two guys who could give you a real good shot here.
Yeah. And in the chat, the Water Heater Factory. Hello, Water Heater Factory.
I love that.
Yeah. Factory thoughts.
Water heaters are great.
Yeah. Well,
they just heat up the water really fast.
This thought came bubbling up. Said, I wouldn't mind being the second wild card if it helps us avoid the Dodgers or Arizona. Point of fact, Factory, the second wild card and the Dodgers are in a path together. 4 versus 5, winner plays 1. So unless LA dropped out of the number 1 seed, where the Padres are right now, in the 4 seed, they would play Arizona in the first round, and then they would play LA, who would have the bye. Is presuming that they won. The only way to avoid that is to go to the 6th seed, because if you're the 6th seed, you will avoid all the other wild cards. You'll play the 3rd division winner, and that could be Milwaukee, but it also could be Philadelphia, because Milwaukee, I could definitely win a bar bet on this. Milwaukee leads Major League Baseball in run differential. They have actually sneakily been kind of the best team in the league for a while. And they're right there for the number 1 record in the league. They're like 2 or 3 games off LA's pace. Who knows where that lands? But
I don't get that team, man.
The Brewers?
They're always pretty good. They're always, in the playoff hunt. They're always in the playoff contention. And then did the Padres do pretty well against the Brewers?
Yes, they won the season series.
Okay.
They went 5-1 against them, or
4-2, 5-2, 4-3.
They're always just kind of right there. But then sometimes you watch them and you're like, how are you right there? But then they're just always there. 82 wins right now.
5-2.
5-2 against them this year. But,
Okay.
but they're 21 games over 500.
Michael King had a no-hitter through like 7 innings.
That's right.
And lost that game.
That's right.
In
I remember
Milwaukee. And then the Sunday here, I think they blew it too or something.
Well, the thing about Milwaukee is they've got a really balanced offense with a ton of power, and Jackson Chourio has had a great rookie season.
He's entered the chat on the Rookie of the Year race, at least in their world.
Well, he's got 20 steals,
Yes.
19 homers, and is hitting .273 for the year with a .790 OPS. I mean, his numbers are very
Creeping up
similar,
there.
very
Yeah.
similar to Jackson Merrill. He's got more steals and like 4 fewer homers, but he's been dynamite. Like, I could look it up, but he's hit something like .320 since June. Like, so, young rookie, very, very young, 20 years old, turned 20 this year. And first couple months really struggled. And we saw them early in the year.
Yeah, that's true.
When Chourio was
Right.
struggling. And since then, he's been dynamite. They've got a lot of diversification in their offense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 different players with double-digit homers on their team. They're doing it with Christian Yelich out
Yeah.
and on the injured list. And they've got a really good, solid bullpen. So they're a good team. Like, the bottom line is very simple. The Padres, let me be incredibly reductive. The Padres are in a pennant race. It means they're playing the best teams in the league. They're going to be matched up against the best teams in the league. And this team that we have, the Padres, have the strengths to be able to beat any one of those teams in the bracket, including Milwaukee, including LA, including Philly. They have the ability to win road games in any of those series. And they have the ability to lose in the first round to any opponent that they line up against, whether it's Arizona, New York, whether it's Atlanta, whether it's Milwaukee, whether it's Philadelphia or LA. They could face any of those teams in the first round still, and they have the ability to lose in 2 or 3 games to them or win 2, 3, 4 playoff series, go all the way to the championship. Wow, Craig said absolutely nothing.
I was going to say, isn't that every team?
No, it's not every team. A lot of teams don't have any chance at all. We've got that chance. We're in it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but all the teams that are in it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of the teams, I don't think every team is built to beat every other one. The Padres have this weird thing. They're good enough to beat anyone. Like, lineup shows up, bullpen locks it down, rotation comes to play, they've got the lineup to beat. They could beat any team. Rotation doesn't come to play, lineup doesn't. And again, you could say it about any team, but we've seen this team. We've seen it lock in, and we've seen it drift off. And to me, it's got championship ability. It's got it. Can they lock it in? Can they lock it in? Tonight's a big night.
Absolutely. Yeah, this whole road trip. I mean, you want to be able to at least split, if not take both games from the Mariners, and then you've got 3 more against the Giants, which you don't want to lose 2 out of 3 to them again.
I want momentum. This team's lost 3 out of 4. Get a win. You win. If you lose tonight, you've lost 3 in a row. Red alert flag goes up tomorrow morning if we take a 3-game losing streak at this point in the year. So let's go. It's go time. It's time to lock in for the San Diego Padres. Get on that little bit of groove, and then watch us talking a month later about how they got in that little groove a couple weeks before the playoffs, and it really lined them up for their competition. One will lead to the other. I feel really, really confident about that. Get going right now, and you're going to have a great chance in that first round. All right, when we come back, the little things that maybe can be the difference for the San Diego Padres. It starts with the guy on the mound tonight. What are you going to get from Yu Darvish? We'll talk about it when we return. Also, setting up the show as we go forward. First time bringing on Brian Grubb. He'll be joining us this hour from the Type Click Type newsletter. He covers pop culture, radio, TV, film, and I've actually read him for years, whether it was at Up Rocks, listened to him on Podcast TV Avalanche back in the day. Brian is going to join us from Philadelphia with some pop culture fun for us at the bottom of the hour. Coming up in the 11 o'clock Padres Deep Dive Hour, our man Sammy Levitt. He'll be here. Just appreciate Sammy. Sammy's starting to become a Tuesday regular on the show. He'll be here at 11:35. We'll have the 12 o'clock Sports Fix at the midpoint of the program. Today's silly game, as everybody knows, the game of comically easy trivia, but it's not always. That'll be your chance to qualify for a Vegas getaway. We'll preview them Mariners, and we'll get you to 2 o'clock with Ask Us Anything at the end of the show. Here we go. Annie and Elsten underway, a locked-in Tuesday on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 10:26 on the Fan. Welcome back. It's Annie and Elsten here with you. Rolling until 2 o'clock all together in studio. Baseball coverage on 97.3 The Fan presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile. You can get tons of benefits. Still save on every plan against AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator. Find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. Well, tonight it's Yu Darvish on the mound for San Diego. And this is sneakily a really big start. Not in the career of Yu Darvish, but in his 2024 season.
Correct, yeah.
Obviously, he's had a lot of big starts in his career. In 2024, though, this is an interesting one because first time out, all the excitement, Yu's back, gave up a run an inning. Didn't get out of the third, wasn't exactly unlucky. He struggled a little bit, and you would expect that. He hadn't pitched since May for the San Diego Padres. So, okay, great. He's Yu Darvish. We know what to expect about him. However, what are you going to get today? Because it's one thing to work a player, kind of nurse them back into their form when you've got room to roam. But we just talked a whole segment about it. You've got 17 games. This is a mad sprint. And every loss comes with real consequence in these last 3 weeks. So I kind of feel like a really good outing tonight, Annie, by you puts him squarely in the first round playoff rotation conversation. But a bad start by you starts to make you wonder if he even gets leapfrogged at the end of the year.
I think it's going to be fun to watch him tonight. You know, he talked after his last start about how he felt he had a little too much adrenaline, maybe even a little nerves. He felt he had to calm himself down a little bit. And that's so normal after being out of baseball since May. And by the way, he had no communication with the Padres during his whole time on the restricted list. It wasn't like Joe, who can travel with the team and work with the trainers and still get the reports and talk to Ruben Niebla. And I think that is the good thing about you, is that he's so good at knowing his body, and he's obviously been around baseball so long and knows so much about pitching that he could work on things without the need for any of that, right? But it's still not the same as having some of that foundation around you. So I think he got the first one out of the way. Certainly you're always concerned about maybe a possible injury or anything that could be looming with him. He talked this year about how it's just been a tough year for his body a little bit, right? So you don't want that to happen. But short of that, this is the guy that I think you want in this stretch and going into a postseason push and in the postseason, because he knows how to bear down. He's like Joe. They know what's at stake in these situations.
The way you phrased that, I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but I think it was exactly right. He's the kind of guy, I think you want him out there in that situation. I agree. I think you want him out there in that situation. But the one thing about 2024 is that there's a lot we don't know. There's just a lot we don't know. And I'm not criticizing it. I'm stating it as fact. He was away from the team for multiple months. During that time, he recovered from the injuries that he had been put on the injured list with previously. He had thrown, if you remember, he had gone on the injured list, thrown one time. It was an elbow discomfort tag when he was put on the IL. Then he threw one rehab start. We thought he was on the way back. Then they said no, shutting him down. Then he went on the restricted list. So normally you'd have a whole situation of, okay, he threw from 90 feet. He threw from 120 feet. Now he's done this. Now he's done that. Now he's done the other thing. He did that stuff on his own, in his own workout time, in backyards, on high school fields, against college kids. And then he came back with no rehab start. So it's almost like he emerged from the mist and rejoined the team, and we're like, we know you, welcome back. But who is that? Who is that? We see him, but what has he got in him? I think it's the biggest mystery of his whole career, because he's just not been around for anyone to track what he's been doing the last 2 months.
Yeah, and I think this is where you kind of lean on history. And again, you don't want any injuries happening, right? Like, you hope that his body is where it needs to be, and his arm and everything like that. But I look at you, and it's like, man, he's just a treasure to have in that clubhouse. And hearing other pitchers talk about him and how he takes interest in their pitches, and works with them and they work with him, and like this guy that like is so revered in the pitching world for what he's been able to do, shaping his pitches and creating new pitches and adding new pitches and just continuing to transform himself year after year. I think that is what gives him an advantage here. Like he's a stealth guy, you know, and he's able to work out of some of these, I think, tougher situations that can arise sometimes when he gets beat. He'll go back to the drawing board and make up a new pitch or go back to an old pitch he hasn't been using, or, you know, and so I think for him too, not having that rehab start, like I get what they did, and I don't know that the rehab start wouldn't have helped him a ton, would have probably given him a little bit more time. And so I think, you know, he went from the time he came back to the time he went back on the big league mound, pretty short amount of time. So I'm hoping, you know, I'm hopeful that was just kind of like a little, hey, welcome back, a little rusty, introduce yourself again, and now you get to kind of feel, you know, back to normal or back to yourself. And I think that's more, and I think this Mariners offense too, this could be the perfect kind of offense to go give him some confidence today, because they strike out a lot and he is able to throw a lot at them, and they don't have good offensive numbers.
We'll find out tonight. Must-watch TV. And to adopt a phrase that Annie coined, these are must-win games. They are all must-win games until that magic number gets sawed down to 0. They are all must-win games from here on out. And you've got these two. Get this one. Get this one today. Get this one today. Get things clicking. And maybe a good week puts you in great shape for next week. That's what I'm looking at for this. This is a great one. Later in the Deep Dive Hour, our boss Adam just jumped in the chat. We'll talk about it more. Is this going to be a new lineup? Will it start tonight? I feel like Xander was dropping hints after Sunday's game. Why would he bring up Solano like that so specifically if the change wasn't about to be made? We'll talk about that later at 11 o'clock. Up next, we welcome a new guest to the show, Brian Grubb from the Type Click Type newsletter. We'll have a little pop culture fun next. Annie and Elsten on The Fan. All right, 10:39 back with you on Annie and Elsten. Full 4-hour show today. Padres baseball later tonight at 6:40 in Seattle against the Mariners. Excited to welcome onto the show from the 97.3 The Fan hotline, Brian Grubb. He's the author of the Type, Click, Type newsletter, which you can subscribe to via Substack. Previously listened to him via podcast, read him a lot on Uprocks as well. He joins us now for the first time here in San Diego. Brian, Annie, and Craig here with you. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Well, thank you guys for having me. That was a lovely introduction. I'm going to start bringing you with me everywhere. Next time I have a wedding to go to, I'll set you up at the table. Before I get in there, let everyone know so that way it's not awkward.
I've got a soccer player here in town who always wants me to bring along to do the exact same thing, Brian. So you can join the list. It's a select list of those who I will introduce. Well, as a note of introduction, why don't you tell our audience who may not be as familiar with you just kind of about what you've been up to and what led you to get into this newsletter?
Okay, so I worked for Uprocks for a long time. I wrote about, film and TV and sports and kind of whatever weirdo news story caught my fancy. And earlier in the summer, I branched out doing it independently with the newsletter, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a little more hustling, a little more self-promotion, but what's really nice is I just get to write about whatever I want. And it's been working out great because typically what I want to write about is just the fun stuff that I'm finding on the internet, not necessarily, like the bummer stuff or the anxiety-inducing stuff or the stuff that you're just scrolling and scares the crap out of you. And it's been really fun. It's been really rewarding. I know, you've reached out and talked to me. You said you've read a few, and most of the feedback I've gotten is great, which is awesome.
What's some of the fun stuff you've written about lately?
This week, what I did actually, instead of writing a whole article, I just wrote 35 silly fake names I thought of. Yeah, just just off the top of my head. Just I love a fake name that ends with a city or a state. So you just come up with Rico Telluride or something like that.
Rico Telluride.
It gives me a lot of pleasure to imagine introducing myself like that or make a restaurant reservation. Under one of my use this week was Hunch McAdoo. Just call up and just use those. Just throw people off a little bit.
Hunch McAdoo. I've got Bob McAdoo vibes, but I've also just, got a wild hunch. I appreciate that.
Yeah. My all-time favorite is Mitch Casino. I feel like that's my alter ego. If I ever need to go on the lam, if I ever need to go dark and you don't hear from me, if I don't call in, just Google Mitch Casino and see what he's up to.
Call some hotels. That's obviously your nom de plume. Like I said, I've been reading you for a while. Please explain to the audience your love of heists, both real and fictional heists, because in one of your recent newsletters, a crab heist in South Philadelphia drew your attention.
Yeah, Philly crab heist. Yeah, so I've always liked heist movies, right? Like Ocean's 11, Thomas Crown Affair, even some of the Fast and Furious movies, like Fast 5, where they're ripping a vault out of a wall in Brazil and just tearing down the streets. But so what that's done is it's kind of carried over a little bit into real world stuff. My favorite are the ones that are relatively harmless, where the people have insurance, nobody got hurt. But this one was some guys busted into a tractor trailer that was parked and the driver was asleep, and they just made off with $40,000 worth of crap. And what I love about this is two things. Number one, I imagine what you do with $40,000 worth of crab. I hope you have somewhere to offload it quick because that's a lot of crab that's going to go bad.
Yeah, do you steal the refrigerated truck as well? I mean, we need refrigeration here.
Yeah. Well, I know some of the places they've just taken a whole truck. I've looked into these sometimes. I'm always careful looking into them because you don't want to find stuff that's a bummer that it's really sad. But sometimes you look into it and some of these are just crimes of opportunity where people are that truck's unlocked. I'm just going to go steal whatever crap's out of the back of it. And then they end up with 5 tons of Easter candy. And you're like, well, what am I going to do with this now? But one of the things that I've really enjoyed about it is just imagining a Ocean's 11 style situation where there's 10, 11 guys in a room figuring out how they're going to pull off this heist. and it turns out it's just $40,000 for the crab meat. The other thing that's great is this is not the first crab heist that has taken place in South Philadelphia this year. There was another one earlier where they got like $30,000 for the crab. So apparently, I don't know what the black market for crab meat looks like, but it must be thriving.
This is a spree. This is a crab spree.
It is. It's a crab heist epidemic. My favorite all-time one of these, though, like last year, I don't know if you guys heard about this. There was like an exhibit in the Guggenheim. Some big conceptual artist had a working solid gold toilet, and the name of the exhibit was America. It was all very subtle. It's all very subtle. But so the exhibit ran out of time, and they had to do something with this toilet. They ended up putting it in a home owned by like descendants of Winston Churchill. And one of the guys, like one of the people who ran the estate, was like, "Yeah, we put this golden toilet in. We're not going to do a lot of security because who the hell's going to want to steal a golden toilet?" And literally within a week, some bozos had showed up and ripped it out of the wall and stolen the solid gold toilet. So again, this is what are you going to do? What are you going to do with a solid gold toilet?
Sit on it, enjoy.
I guess. I like to imagine the thought process that goes into it, and then what the hell they're going to do with it once they have it. Like, I guess you melt it down.
That's a lot of smelting.
There's a lot going on. And, like, would you even really want the gold that was used in a working toilet? Like, sweetie, I got you this necklace, solid gold. Where'd you get the gold? Don't worry about it.
Brian, you're Philadelphia, right? Are you an Eagles fan, a Phillies fan? What are your takes on the teams?
Well, the Phillies won last night. The Eagles won on Friday. So I'm doing great. Should either one of those things change, I will be doing terrible. Sports are a blast.
You know,
how are you guys feeling about the Padres right now?
Well, we are confidently nervous or nervously confident, depending on just like you said, the win or the loss the night before. I think we've settled on nervously confident. That's the stronger of the two, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sports make you so sick. Like the Phillies, I feel stupid because the Phillies right now like are tied with the Dodgers for the best record in baseball, and yet I am constantly terrified every day. Like last night's game, they won in the ninth inning on a walk-off hit. And, like, I was in here losing my mind. And I have to stop and tell myself, like, my team has a 7-game lead. Like, I should be confident. I should feel good. And yet I'm just constantly panicking. It's great.
Well, I mean, they could still fall to third. They could have to play in the first round. There's still a lot that could go wrong for Philadelphia. And I kind of just feel like since the first half, there's at least been a little more vulnerability there.
You're not helping me right now, buddy. You're not helping me at all.
Well, here,
no, it's true. It's true there. Yeah, and it's like that with anything. Like, again, the Eagles fan, like the Eagles started the season gangbusters last year and then just fell apart in just tremendous fashion. Just looked like the worst football team you've ever seen. Like some of the guys look like they just learned how to play football like 20 minutes ago. Or forgot, like it was one of those comedies you'd see in the 90s, like a sports movie, where everyone gets amnesia in the middle of the season, and they're like, what? So, yes, constantly living in fear. It's very exciting. It's almost more comfortable to be, like I'm almost envious of you guys because, you know, you're a few games back, like you're hanging in there, and, you know, you playoff, it looks pretty good for playoff odds for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, but you get to like sneak in a level below the favorites, and then you just get to be the underdog and exciting. And if somebody gets hot, like that's a fun wave to ride. But like going in as like the favorites or the best record, kind of terrifying.
No, you're right. Just ask the guys up the street in L.A. They know all about it. We're talking with Brian Grubb, who hosts the Type Click Type newsletter. You can find it on Substack. You can subscribe. I've subscribed, given subscriptions to Annie and Braden so they can follow along as well. A couple weeks ago, you wrote about the creation of Pitbull Stadium down in Florida, named after Pitbull. They had their first game over the weekend at Pitbull Stadium. I'm going to be man enough to admit I didn't watch it. But what would you like to see at Pitbull Stadium? What is the idealized version of Pitbull Stadium in your mind?
I like everything about Pitbull Stadium. I mean, I like saying Pitbull Stadium, first of all, I really recommend kind of detach yourself from it. Just think about it and go Pitbull Stadium. It's a fun thing to say. But the other thing I really like about it is we've spent my entire adult life, stadiums have been named after faceless corporations and things that I don't like. In Philadelphia, we have Citizens Bank Park and Lincoln Financial Field and Wells Fargo Stadium. And I have no particular affinity to any one of those places. But if one of those stadiums were named for a local icon, like Patti LaBelle Stadium, I would be thrilled to go to Patti LaBelle Stadium to watch a sporting event. So just the idea that this thing is named after Pitbull is awesome. And I don't know if you've ever looked into the agreement that they set up for it, but Pitbull's paying $1 million a year for 5 years to have the stadium named after him. But there's also he gets to use the stadium for 10 days. And I know he's using it for concerts and stuff, but I also kind of like the idea that he would use it for his own birthday party. He just has free use of the stadium to do whatever he wants.
His
that
annual
would make
flag
me really
football
happy.
game. Just, hey, I always
exactly. Like a July 4th barbecue. And the whole stadium, he's got 20 people there total. And he's just yeah, I don't know. They said I could use it today. What do you guys want to do?
Brian,
lawn darts.
Right, exactly. Before we let you go, I know you as I said, I've followed you for movie, television. Your old podcast with Alan Sepinwall was honestly one of the inspirations for me to do Crossing Streams for years. So a lot of NFL fans probably feel held hostage by the Peacock app, whether they wanted to or not. They've got it because they need it to watch this show or that. Or this game or that, I should say. What are some of the shows, before we let you go on Peacock, that you would recommend to make it a little bit more worth your while?
Okay, well, I would recommend, they have some of the older stuff on there is really good. They have every episode of Homicide: Life on the Street. They have every episode of Columbo, which came out 50 years ago and is still delightful things to watch Friday night. But the one that I've been telling people all the time, there's a movie on there that just was released on Peacock a little while ago. It's called The Fall Guy. Came out in theaters in May. It flopped so hard, and it bummed me out so much because I saw this movie in the theaters. Ryan Gosling being charming as hell. Emily Blunt doing Emily Blunt. It is such a fun movie. It is just a blast from beginning to end. And I tell people all the time, if you signed up for Peacock for the Olympics, or you signed up for Peacock to watch an NFL game here or there, just watch The Fall Guy some night. Some stupid night when it's raining and you're sitting at home and you're on the couch and you got nothing to do. Cue it up. It's a blast. If you're already paying for this thing for NFL games, it's just value at that point. You've already spent the money. It's basically free. So that would be my recommendation. Watch The Fall Guy. If you like it, thank me. Sign up for my newsletter. You get good stuff like that. If you don't like it, pretend I didn't say it. Still sign up for my newsletter.
And how can people do that before you leave?
It's very easy. You go to Google, you type the phrase, type Brian C. Grubb, BrianC Grubb. You'll be sent to a link to Substack. It publishes twice a week. Friday is for paying subscribers. I just list my 5 favorite goofy, stupid things of the week. Sunday is a free newsletter that goes out every Sunday before lunch. It is a few paragraphs of me ranting and raving about something, and then it's a bunch of links to fun stuff I clicked on and looked at during the week. My whole goal with this thing is just entertain you for 20 minutes. Again, the internet can be a scary, weird, creepy place. I'm just trying to give you a good time for 20 minutes.
That's great, Brian. We appreciate you, man. Thanks for making your debut on the show, and we look forward to chatting with you again. Thanks for giving us a little bit of a break as well to have some fun.
No problem. Thank you guys very much. Go Padres unless they play the Phillies.
Fair enough. And likewise, go Phillies unless and until. Mm-hmm. At which point, we diverge. Or as Tony Gwynn Jr. said, we divulge.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did. It was great. He goes, this is the point where we divulge. And I'm like, you mean diverge? Got it. Great moments in Roundtable history. All right. There was Brian Grubb. And I have not watched The Fall Guy yet.
I have not seen The Fall Guy.
Look at Water Heater Factory says, saw The Fall Guy last weekend. It's actually a pretty awesome movie. Jake Waters, Fall Guy was awesome with the family to watch. Okay. All right. Hey, let's hope. Let me do it in reverse. Padres are up 9-0. You know, 6th inning. You's already out. Brian Hoeing's in there working. Why not? Why not go watch The Fall Guy? Maybe I'll watch The Fall Guy tonight. We'll have a report by the end of Friday. Okay, we are 1 hour deep on Annie and Elsten. And when we come back, it's Padres Deep Dive Hour time, and we will start things off by taking a close look at the schedules remaining for the teams remaining. But before we get too deep in and we get to Sammy Levitt at the bottom of the hour, what would this lineup look like if Bogart's kind of ruminations on Sunday came true and it became Donovan Solano in the lineup full time?
Yeah, I might see it today.
Yeah. Will we see it today? Will we see it today? We'll talk about that right when we come back and get things rolling for you. It's Annie and Elsten. We go till 2 o'clock. Also, still to come, as we mentioned, Sam Levitt will join us at the bottom of the hour. We'll get his thoughts on all of this and plenty more. As Sammy gets ready, Sammy's working in studio this week, bringing you the pregame show starting at 5:40 later tonight. All right, rolling 12 o'clock Sports Fix at the top of next hour. We play Everybody Knows in the 12 o'clock hour as well. It's Annie and Elsten. It's your midday hang, and we go till 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Stay right there. It's a short break. The Padres Deep Dive Hour. Back with you on Annie and Elsten. Annie Halbern, Craig Elsten, Braden Suprenant. All together in our Odyssey studios overlooking sunny Murphy Canyon. Heat advisory in the East County extended through today. It's like, hey, you haven't enjoyed this enough? One more day. Keep it rolling. Seemed like it broke a little bit yesterday.
I think it's supposed to break like 10 degrees by the end of the week, maybe, or tomorrow. So that's good.
It wasn't too bad at practice yesterday. And yesterday we were in a orange tier, which means they had to wear shorts. But we had this whipping breeze that was going right through the school. I was like, it was way hotter. We've practiced in way hotter temperatures than what this little bulb thermometer told us.
Well, that was the difference yesterday, and I noted it. I had a golf lesson yesterday evening, and I was going to cancel it. Like the day before, I was like, hey, 100 degrees. I don't really want to be there just sweating my ass off trying to learn something. I won't learn anything. I'll just be focused on how hot I am.
That's why the golf courses are empty in Arizona in the summertime.
Oh, my God, dude. I mean, my lesson was at 5 yesterday. I showed up, first time I've ever seen it, the Mission Trails driving range, like 2 people there.
Yeah.
Like literally 2 people out there. And I'm like, why am I the crazy? But the difference was the breeze wasn't that devil's breath that we had for 4 days where it was just hot. It was like actually an actual breeze.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Nice, yeah.
It was nice by the coast, for sure.
Appreciated. So let's get out of this crazy heat, but let's see that heat transfer back to our beloved San Diego Padres, who have been a little drifty over the last 3 weeks. And there's nothing necessarily wrong about that. You can't stay razor hot forever. Did you hear me, Mets? You can't stay hot forever. Okay?
Yeah, when's the Mets temperature going to break?
That's what I'm wondering.
Right.
Yeah, when's the cooling breeze going to go over Flushing?
Who do they play next?
Well, it's great that you ask because Braden is always good about updating our Hunt for October spreadsheet within our rundown each day.
They're in Toronto right now.
Yeah, Mets.
Oh, yeah, they just started that series,
But
right?
then it's Philly, Washington, Philly. So they got to play Philly 7 times.
Yeah.
Atlanta, Milwaukee. Good luck.
Those Phillies
Have
ones could do them in.
A lot could change by the end of the week.
Yeah.
A lot could change by the end of the week. Again, resetting, which we did at 10 o'clock. The Padres are 81-64. So I remember Chris on a roundtable saying somehow, some way, the Padres will finish with 81 wins. That would require a 19-game losing streak to end the season. I don't see that coming. Knockwood. I don't see that coming for San Diego. But they have already clinched a 500 season at 81-64. Arizona's 80-64. They're right on our heels. They've got a game in hand. They'll probably play that game on Thursday. No, they won't. They'll play that game next week. They'll make up that game next week when they have 4 in Milwaukee. But at that point, they've got one more game than us. The Mets have one more game than us. Atlanta has one more game than we do. New York is just a game and a half off the Padres' tails. They have moved into playoff position. They have moved to 14 games over 500. Rock bottom's a long way away. I still remember that April clip with Gary Cohen. Empty Shea Stadium. Mets have lost 5 in a row. Is this rock bottom? He was right. It was.
Yeah. I mean, they've come so far since then, and the streak they're on is pretty dynamic. I mean, it's similar to the Padres streak and what they've been doing out of the All-Star break. So the Mets getting hot like that, and we'll see how long it lasts. But even the Braves to hang around right now. I mean, all the injuries that they've had, pretty remarkable for them to even be in the conversation right now.
Yes, Atlanta very much in the conversation, a game behind New York, and those teams play each other for a 3-game series the same time that the Padres and Dodgers play one another. So that final week, while San Diego's playing L.A., New York will be playing Atlanta. And it will be that classic thing. If you win your game, you're guaranteed to gain a game on one of them. And if you lose your game, you're guaranteed to lose a game to one of them. However, if the Padres, you've heard me say this before if you listen to this show all the time, if the Padres take care of business the next 2 weeks, that last week won't have to matter that much. And that's what you want. That's your dream, is for it not to matter that much. And I'm looking specifically at this weekend, Danny. Check this out. So we know the Padres tonight open 2 against Seattle. Then they have a day off. Then they have 3 against San Francisco. San Diego should be a favorite in at least 4 of those 5 games. They're going to see Logan Webb again. Webb is a particularly bad matchup for this ground ball prone offense. But they should be a favorite in 4 of the 5 games that they play. If the Padres can go 4-1 this week, drop a game either in Seattle or San Francisco, but win the other 4, check it out. Atlanta, after finishing their series in Washington, they host the Dodgers for 4. The Mets, after finishing this series in Toronto, go to Philly for 3. And the Diamondbacks host Texas for 2. They might get DeGrom in one of those 2 games. They might get Scherzer in one of those 2 games. And then they host Milwaukee, the team that we talked about in the first hour as being quietly the actual number 1 team in the league in run differential. Higher run differential than the Yankees, higher run differential than the Dodgers, higher run differential than anyone is Milwaukee. So if the Padres go 4-1, what are the odds that Arizona and Atlanta and the Mets are going to get through all of those series and sweep those series? Right. It's almost impossible.
It's a long shot.
Right? So the Padres should be in a great position if they can lock in and beat these not bad, but average teams, Seattle and San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why the path for them is, even if they kind of hit a few speed bumps here along the way, as long as they pretty much stay on track, they're going to be okay. They're going to have a spot in the playoffs. It might not be the top seeding, but it might. Also, the Diamondbacks kind of scuffling a little bit too, kind of hitting a few speed bumps along the way as well. So Dodgers lost yesterday to, they lost to someone.
The Cubs.
The Cubs, yes. And the Cubs back today. They're playing in LA. So, just so much of anything can happen right now at this time in the season. I don't foresee everybody staying hot from here on out. I mean, it's definitely possible, but there's some pretty good matchups here along the way that I think are going to be tough to take the series sweep. So for the Padres, at least they're sitting in a spot where they can mostly control their destiny. I mean, they really can. Like, they're not looking up at anyone. As long as they stay on track, don't let the slide happen, then they're going to be okay.
They really will. Hey, Braden, when he updates his hunt for October, he uses this playoffstatus.com.
I just found that today. I think it's cool.
It's very cool. And it's breaking down, literally game by game, the importance of these games and how it changes win possibility. So just for an example, Padres sweep these 2 in Seattle. Their odds of taking the top wild card spot jump to 53%. If they drop both in Seattle, it falls to 31%. If they take both in Seattle, their chance of missing the playoffs drops to 3%. If they drop both in Seattle, it jumps all the way to 13%. Oh, that doesn't seem like that much. That's too much for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've played enough poker to know what happens when you are a 90% favorite on the river and the final card falls.
I mean, TLDR, win, and your percentage is going to go up. Lose, and your percentage is going to go down.
Absolutely. But it's just dramatic right now.
Well, the other thing, too, on that chart, obviously the listeners can't see it, but all of the numbers that are green means you are still in control of your own destiny for that spot. If it's red, which is at 31% of the Mariners sweep, means you're no longer in control of your own destiny for that spot.
Right. So Padres fall out of control if they lose those 2 games.
But the other thing that's interesting, too, is there's the other games in part of the mix and where the Padres percentage is at based on the results of other games. If the Rangers sweep the 2 games in Arizona, the Padres jump to a 52% chance at the wild card.
Right.
For the 4 seed. Just some of those things.
Yeah.
It's just very fascinating because remember, it's not just the Padres. You got to worry about some other results as well.
Yes. The Nationals and Braves. Really, the Braves, we talked about it again at 10, but the Braves are the team. If all you're worried about is the other shoe, if all you're worried about is, oh my God, we're not going to make the playoffs, we're going to have this great year and we're not going to make the playoffs. The team you have to worry about now is Atlanta, period, end of story, because the Mets could pass you, Arizona could pass you, and you're still in the playoffs. as long as Atlanta stays behind. And you've got the tiebreaker on them. You've got a 2.5 game lead on them with 17 games left to go. Magic number is what, 15 against Atlanta?
The Padres magic number
Yeah,
to make
Padres
the playoff,
magic number.
15.
Yeah. But magic number is 15. That's 15 Padre wins plus Atlanta losses. So, again, that number could get chopped to mid-single digits by Monday. If things go the right way. They're facing LA, we're facing San Francisco. And now I have to go back to that black box of bad losses. The Padres have lost 8 times to Colorado. They lost all 3 times to the Angels. They have lost 6 times to the San Francisco Giants this year. Not exactly the same level of awful, because the Giants are definitely a bang average team. They're not good, but they're not bad. Nonetheless, the more you add into that, the more regret can build for this team. And that's why, really, I'm looking at this as a playoff week. Like, I don't want to see us roll around in the mud with the Mariners and the Giants, because you just get dirty and they like it. You know, like, the Padres need to stay clean this week, play clean baseball, and if they do, watch. Just watch. Monday, it's go time. It's going to be a steamroll to the playoffs. And there's your hunt for October. Win and you're in. TLDR.
We're in magic number time.
Win good, lose bad.
I mean, just so much can change in the span of a week. If they do well this week and the other teams do poorly, yeah, I mean, it gets a lot harder. If everybody keeps doing well, it stays. I mean, what you have on your side is that the time is running out. So as long as you can still stay on, in your spot, the time's going to run out. The time on the clock is the little hourglass is going to completely run out. But if everyone continues to do well, it's just going to go on for another week.
I like the Padres' first round playoff matchup probabilities too. It's very interesting. 40% chance that they'll play Arizona in the first round, 16% chance they play the Braves, 16% chance they play the Mets, and even a 15% chance that they get the last spot and play the Brewers.
Right.
And then it divvies up. Surprisingly enough, Padres only have a 19% chance of playing the Diamondbacks at home compared to the 21% chance that they play them on the road to start the playoffs.
So the projection systems have Arizona as a very slight favorite. And
Right.
probably that has to do exclusively with the fact that the final 3 games are in Chase Field.
I would agree.
So, hey, right. We give you the breakdown. Why? Because it's the deep dive hour, gang. That's what we do. It's the deep dive hour. You're here for the deep.
Yeah, I know where everything stands.
Yeah, and in the deep, Padres are in a really solid position. Do well, guaranteed in. Do medium, almost probably in. Do bad, you open up trouble along the way. But I really think, for me, bottom line, it's just taking care of business and showing me that team that you've shown me for 2 months this week. Let's see it this week. And if we see it this week, Padres in great shape. But what kind of lineup are we going to see tonight? Because it seems like the Mason McCoy era at shortstop may be winding down, if not over already. What does this lineup look like if Xander Bogaerts is at short tonight? Let's take a look at it when we come back on the Deep Dive Hour. It's Andy and Elsten on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. The Padres Deep Dive Hour is brought to you by Frozen Ropes Baseball and Softball Training Facilities. Now introducing the Freezy Batting Cage membership for just $79 a month. For more information, visit SanDiegoFrozenRopes.com. Sam Levitt will be joining us in our next segment here in the Deep Dive Hour as he gets ready for Padres pregame at 5:40 tonight. Lineup will be out, sometime early in Gwen and Chris, probably. What will this lineup be? This is one of the most interesting days of the year, I think, Eddie. Like, there's an actual chance we see a real substantive change today.
Yeah, especially because he doesn't change the lineup around all that much, right? I mean, it's just kind of when necessary. But a little bit of talk we heard after the game on Sunday from Mike Schultz saying that they're try to ease Xander into shortstop a little bit and didn't want to put too much out there about it, but that they're looking at it. And then Xander said, well, hey, I have been thinking about it because me not playing shortstop means Donovan Solano isn't in the lineup, and Donovan Solano has been so good for us when he's playing every day. So it just sounds like they are leaning toward that outcome.
Would you agree that whatever decision they make, okay, hang on, I'll put a caveat on this. We don't know whether Ha-Seong Kim will be back in 2 weeks, 10 days, a week from now, not at all, right? I think all of those possibilities are on the table right now. So understanding that, in which Ha-Seong Kim comes back and it changes things again, any change you make today, you're going to roll that change right into the playoffs, aren't you? Like, you're not going to make a change and then change back before the playoffs.
And I think so, but I do wonder, when they say putting Xander in or maybe moving Xander to shortstop, does that mean every game? Is it fair to him to move him back and forth between the two if he's already talked a little bit about how that was a little tough on him earlier this year in terms of learning second? And by the way, his shoulder is not completely healed. It's gotten a lot better, but he still, like I said the other day, he talked to me about how when he dives, he has a lot of pain the next day and some soreness, right? Or at least soreness. And he has to be smart about when he dives and when he doesn't, right? So I think for Xander, it's a matter of how do you balance who can I be at my best and what can I give this team? Because as much as you want to make this lineup better, you also don't want Xander to have to take a step back in any way. So I think they are all in agreement. Donovan Solano makes this lineup better. I think Xander moves over to shortstop. How that looks and if he's okay with moving back and forth consistently, that's going to be a good question.
Well, it certainly changes the Padres defensively. Before we get to that, how does it change the Padres offensively? Well, if Mike Schilt went with all the regular things that he has been doing, at least to the last couple of weeks or the last week since Tatis has come back, the lineup would look something like this. Arise, either at DH or first base, followed by Tatis, Profar, Machado, Cronenworth, Bogarts, Merrill, Solano hitting eighth, playing either DH or first base. You can just trade off with he and Luis, which position they get each day, and the catcher batting ninth. Okay, well, that's clearly a very deep lineup. If Higashioka or Diaz or Campy is kind of like your only, it's not even a down spot. Catchers have hit over 20 homers, driven in over 80 runs for the Padres this year. There's definitely an offensive bonus to having a lineup where there really isn't anybody that you would call a real weak spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with Mason McCoy stepping in, it worked for a while there. I mean, Mason McCoy has done what the Padres have needed him to do. Play good, solid defense and get the bunt down when necessary, maybe a sac fly, try to get some hits here and there. And honestly, that was fine, but some of the lineup now for the Padres has been a little streaky, right? And so then a guy like Mason McCoy stands out more. To me, look, you get Mason gets on base, Luis Ariz is up top of the lineup. You got good chance of, if Mason gets on base, you got a good chance of driving him in or at least moving him along the base paths. But I can understand where Donovan Solano's numbers obviously are so much better when he's playing every day, and he is a way more experienced bat, someone that you do want in the lineup if you can get him in there. So it kind of makes sense for them, to want to deepen that lineup even a little bit more.
Now, if you're so on one level, 100%, okay, I get it all. Now let's talk about the defensive effects of this. You are pushing 3 players down the defensive spectrum, meaning putting them in more difficult positions on an everyday basis. You're putting Xander from second, where he's been playing well defensively, and the metrics like him, to short, where other than his walk season in Boston, he is generally graded as an average or below defender. He's carried shortstop because of his bat, not because of his glove. You are pushing Cronenworth from first to second, where generally we would say, hey, Jake's a really good second baseman. He's played great second base. 3 years ago, he played tremendous second base. The numbers this year indicate that he has been not good at second base, and he's been okay at first base. All right, well, you can live with that. But then you're also taking first base, where Cronenworth has been okay, and you're replacing that with Arise or Solano, both of whom have been well below average at the bag. And I think, importantly, both are very short. And that matters at first base. It's less length on a reach out, right? It's further on a scoop, and it's high throws that are harder for you to catch because you have to jump up to catch them. So putting 5'7", 5'8" guys at first base, that's something I don't not think about. You know what I mean? So yes, it's a trade-off. It's a better lineup. There's no question. It's a better lineup with Solano in it. But does adding Solano I'm asking a question here. I'm not advocating a side. Does adding Solano's bat in the 8 spot make up for what you're losing defensively at 3 different positions on the infield?
I mean, it's a good question. I don't know. It's for Jake, too, what he's done at first base, the way that he's worked that position, he's really made it his own, and the way that he plays off of the base and the way that he considers himself, to play a little bit more back on the infield and save some runs, really. The way his stretches, everything that kind of Jake has done to become better at first base, I think, has been apparent this year. So, and he plays a really good second base, too. And I think Xander plays a solid shortstop. Maybe it's not as good as Ha-Seong Kim, but I always wondered if what they were doing with the trade-off of moving the 2 of them at the beginning of the season was worth enough for why they did that too.
Sure,
I don't really know. But look, Mike Schilt absolutely appreciates and really wants the defense to be solid. So you're probably giving up something one way or another with that.
In today's Letters to AJ column, he wrote something toward the end that I just want to repeat, and it's something I could say for almost all of our deep dive segments, all right, which is that we are at the point where you have to look at everything, all right? This is something that Dylan wrote this morning. He said, because he was looking at very specific things in the last 3 games. Why did McCoy hit in the 6th inning of that Saturday game when there was 2 on and 1 out? So on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And he wrote, This is being nitpicky, but this is the part of the season to go through every process with a fine-toothed comb, a time for sobriety, because getting marginal decisions right has implications for surviving in the postseason. And once you're in the postseason, you're out of second chances. This is the business end of the season. In Australia, they call it the pointy end. You've gotten to the pointy end of the season. So every one of these decisions really, really matters. Whereas 65 games ago, you could always argue, hey, there's time, don't worry.
I think that's why they're considering it, because they're trying to get whatever edge they can.
I agree. So with that said, here's my deep dive look at this reconstrued offense. And here's my point of concern. The reason you have to make this change is because McCoy in the 9 spot is interacting poorly with the top of the order. And here's why. McCoy, ice cold, right? Not getting on base, not getting hits. Arise, hottest player on the team, hitting .450 over the last 3 weeks.
He looks so much like Luis Arise right now.
He absolutely does. Tatis, not exactly hot right now. 6 for 24 off the disabled list. What's he going to be? We don't know. There's a question mark there. And then Profar in the 3 spot in the last 14 days is 4 for 39, hitting .128. And he's got 1 homer in that time, but that's it. He's walked 10 times. He's still getting on base.
Yeah, he's still getting on base.
But those 10 walks, when you're 5 for 39, only bring your on-base percentage to 294, which is not enough. So right now, you've got your hottest hitter surrounded by a cold pocket of a cold hitter in front of him in McCoy and a cold hitter behind him in Profar with Tatis in between, who's kind of iffy. He's finding his timing back. Meanwhile, Machado is red hot. Cronenworth is fine. Bogarts is heating up. Merrill's been great. So that 4 through 7 is solid, but it's not connecting to Arise in a direct way. So there's where I want to say, good idea, Padres. Let's take it a step further. And what I mean by that is, and we talked about it yesterday, I think you agree that Jurickson won't panic or get mad or disrupt the vibes. I think until and unless Jurickson shows us that hot, first half form, that it's time to drop him to 5th or 7th in the lineup and shift upward Merrill. Get Merrill higher in the lineup. Now, maybe they won't do it. Maybe they'll only put Cronenworth 3rd, and that's the only bridge they're willing to cross. Fine. I'm still better with that to avoid that cold pocket that surrounds Arise. That's what I think is leading to some of the inconsistency we've seen the last 2 weeks from the offense.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's something that they do try. And Luis Arise has the guy, he's really pushing for that 3rd batting title, and he looks like can do it. He's feeling himself. He's pretty happy right now. Feels like that thumb is doing better. And so that's who you want right now, leading off and being part of this team, going into the playoffs where nobody wants to face him. You saw even with the Tigers, they'd rather hit to Fernando, and I think that if you're able to, you're right. Look, if you're able to surround him with a little bit more power or some guys that are just a little bit more consistent, or maybe not in maybe a little bit of a slump, right? Maybe they need to move. I don't want to move Fernando. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good point. They probably need to maybe look at a few things within the lineup.
I'm just going to say it again, and I know they're probably not going to do it, but I'm going to keep saying it. Merrill is as important a hitter on this team as anybody. And getting him in between Tatis and Machado just sounds great. It makes sense. Getting him 2 away from Arise, where he could be driving in Luis Arise. It just makes sense. And I really, really believe this to the bottom of my heart, that if that lineup came out at 2:30 this afternoon, that everyone would be so excited if they saw Merrill in that 3 spot, because the kid gloves are off now, and you're playing to maximize, as Dylan wrote in Letter Stage, you're playing to maximize those marginal percentages to try increase a sliver of a chance that you go ahead and win the World Series. That would be a bold, bold move by this organization, and I don't think it's one that Jackson Merrill would shrink to at this point of the year. Now, they have not been willing to do that the entire year. So I understand when I'm saying that it's a little bit of fan fiction on my part. But I do believe if that lineup came out, everyone would go like, that feels right. Like, oh, this lineup feels right now. Mm-hmm. So let's find out what happens.
Tyler in the chat asks, why is Arise leading off if he's able to get the hits that he is? Maybe that's something to look at as well. I know they love how he sets the tone. He's the one that, will typically get on base, right? He pretty much gets a hit every time he's up there, and so he sets the table for everyone else. Now, you would want more production out of the guys behind you, for sure. But also, Arise has been the one to be able to knock guys in the bottom of the lineup. So it's like that lineup turns over, and he becomes the guy that is, hitting cleanup or whatever. So if you do have that bottom of the lineup, and that's even with, like, if they don't move Merrill, typically Merrill can do something there, or maybe Solano or, whoever, then that lineup will turn over and you'll get to him. But that is a spot I think that, you could probably discuss and talk about, but they definitely do like what he does there. He puts pressure on the pitcher the second he's up.
One last thing on this topic, versatility style. If you do move Xander to shortstop, it's not always Solano that has to come into the lineup. David Peralta could come into the lineup as a DH as well against certain pitchers who have, hard platoon splits and struggle against lefties. You could add one more left-handed bat into the lineup as well. So there's a lot of offensive bonus and benefit to moving Xander Bogaerts to shortstop. There's just no question about it. Maximizing the lineup around that move takes you to an even higher level if you take cold pocket players away from Arise. The key is what happens to the defense as a result. Does that lead to a double play not turned that leads to a loss instead of a win? These are the kind of things that Mike Schilt and his coaching staff and AJ Preller are absolutely hashing out, weighing the probabilities, and deep diving themselves.
Yeah, I mean, because that mantra that Schilt talks about all the time, give nothing away, right? He values defense, right? So it is probably a little bit of a trade-off. That's where you want what you had at the beginning of the year, right? You want Ha-Seong Kim there, and then you really don't have to necessarily worry about that on defense, right? But I think that this is a pretty good infield group in general, and I think that that's probably a risk that you take if you think that that lineup is going to be able to give you a little bit more.
Let's take a time out. When we come back, we hear from the man. Sammy Levitt is in the on-deck circle, and he's waiting to join us here on the Padres Deep Dive Hour on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Listen to Sam Levitt's podcast, Inside San Diego Baseball. That's where Sam covers everything going on with the Padres. You can find it at 973thefansd.com, the Odyssey app, or wherever you get your podcasts. And I think you should listen, but you should also listen right now because Sam Levitt is here and delivering his own version. And maybe he'll put this on Inside San Diego Baseball, this interview. Maybe he won't. Nonetheless, Sam Levitt is here with Annie and Elsten once again on a Tuesday. Sam, how you doing, my brother?
Annie, Craig, Braden, good to be with you. Beautiful day in San Diego. It's starting to cool down a little bit, it feels like. So all is well in Sam's world right now.
How'd you do your day off? What'd you do?
What did I do on my day off? I didn't do a whole lot. I did some work in the morning. I watched the Jets and the 49ers last night, pulling for the Jets. That didn't work out. Jets also didn't help my fantasy team, so that didn't work out. So at least for week one, it was same old Jets in my book, but there's promise there. So I didn't do a whole lot. I did play pickleball too, so I got some pickleball in, watched some football, did some work. So all in all, a good off day, and another one on Thursday too.
I love it. Sammy, we were just talking about how Jackson Merrill, I think, should be left middle to bottom of the lineup, kind of keep him where he is. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Craig is more of the mind that he should be moved up to the top of the lineup. You can't make either of us mad, Sammy. Where do you fall in this Jackson Merrill conversation?
Yeah, and I apologize. There's a plane going overhead. I don't know if you can hear that or not. But back to the Jackson Merrill conversation. I more side with you, Annie. I know that there's probably a temptation, and maybe there's even a temptation within the organization to move him up. And look, that's a credit to Jackson Merrill because he's been so good and he's been so clutch and he's had so many swings in big moments that have meant so much to this team and this season. I totally understand the argument behind it. My argument would be he's done so well where he's been at in the lineup. Why change a thing? He's been so productive from that bottom, third of the order, or at least bottom half of the order. I kind of lean a little bit more conservative in the sense of why tinker anything with him. That's how I lean, but I certainly understand the argument to if you can get somebody who's been that productive a little bit higher in the lineup when maybe you have some more RBI situations per se, that it makes sense. I personally would not mess with a thing when it comes to Jackson Merrill in this rookie campaign, especially as we come down the home stretch.
Well, I don't think Mike Schilt will either, Sam. So it becomes just a matter of academics, basically. But with that said, I do believe there is an issue in the 3 spot right now because Jurickson is 5 for his last 39, 128 average, OPS of 499 in that stretch. He's drawn some walks. That's been it. And when you surround your hottest hitter, Arise, with a cold spot at 9, a cold spot at 3, and Tatis kind of finding his way back, that adds to inefficiency. Would you think if Merrill is a bridge too far, okay, we're going to leave him on that side of the bridge and have him hit 7th, would a Cronenworth Profar flip-flop 3-5 be something that could be useful?
Yeah, look, I think the point you bring up with Profar is interesting. I mean, he's had a bit of an interesting stretch as of late, right? Because the offensive numbers are certainly down. He has certainly cooled off. Now, recently he's got on base. Like if you look at his on base percentage during, whatever it might be now, the last 8-9 games, he's actually getting on base and walking quite a bit, which is really not a surprise because we know with Jurickson, even when he's not necessarily hitting, he does get on base. I see the point, Craig, that you make when you have a Rise in front of him as hot as he's been and getting on base as much as he's been, and then a guy in Profar who's just not hitting the same way he was and not run producing the same way he was. I could buy into that, switching, somebody like Cronenworth with Profar and look, Jake is maybe just a little bit hotter right now and is being more of a run producer right now. And look, maybe you make a fair point as I talk it out here that 3 spot is an issue right now. And look, having a Merrill in that spot behind a red hot Luis Ariz, and obviously as Fernando tries to find his footing again, again, I think there's an argument to it. I'd be a little bit careful with the Merrill part, but I certainly wouldn't disagree with maybe dropping Jurickson down at least until he starts swinging the bat better again. So you could get me into that, at least a Cronenworth and Profar switch, just to make sure maybe you have a little bit more production behind Arise, who right now is looking really, really good. I mean, I'm not sure if it's just the thumb feeling better or he's swinging the bat better, but he looks as close to how he looked when he first arrived, the way he swung the bat the last week and a half, 2 weeks.
Sammy, I'm sure you heard the comments after Sunday's game about possibly moving to shortstop for Xander Bogaerts. What's your take on how they might change the lineup or change the infield defense? And do you think Xander should make this move?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and I'll preface what I'll say to the real question of it with this. Look, I think Xander, did everything the team asked him to do in spring training, and really took on second base, took it on openly. I mean, we can go back and kind of rehash how that all went down at spring training. I thought Xander, and I think a lot of us agreed on this at the time, handled that really well, and to his credit, has turned himself into, I think, a really, really good defensive second baseman. He looks comfortable over there. I thought when it seemed like Kim was only going to be out for, let's say, the 10 days of the IL stint, I understood Xander being hesitant and reluctant to now make that switch back if Kim was going to be back. And at that time, too, the Padres had at least a little bit more of a cushion in the wild card race. But right now, with as close as this thing is, with as many games as there are left, the Padres need to prioritize putting their best offensive lineup out there each and every day. And to me, that is with either Donovan Solano or David Peralta in the lineup every day. And look, Mason McCoy has done a nice job defensively at shortstop, but offensively, he hasn't shown a whole lot yet. So it seems to me almost like a must, without saying it's a 100% must, because we're going to find out with the lineup here, coming up in a little bit, how they line up in Seattle. If Xander's back at shortstop, that'll tell us everything we need to know. But, not to say like desperate times call for desperate measures, because I don't think the Padres are in like a desperate spot, but there's a handful of games remaining and this thing is really close, and getting Solano or Peralta in the lineup every day, I think the Padres have to prioritize that over whatever else. And look, Xander's moving, if he is playing shortstop, let's say the rest of the regular season, and beyond that, potentially, depending on Kim's status, look, it's not a position that he's unfamiliar with. And look, I thought we saw on Sunday, and Mike Schultz said it after the game, that Bogaerts going over to shortstop as early as he did in that game when they pinch hit for McCoy in the fifth inning was easing Bogaerts back into the possibility of that. And I thought after the game, at least from what Xander said, while there seemed to be still a little bit of hesitancy, if he wants to look at it from, hey, I understand that Solano's got to be in this lineup and he was doing better when he was in the lineup every day. However he needs to think about it, it does seem like we're getting to that point where they've got to prioritize having the best lineup they possibly can, and it would appear that the way they do that is getting Xander back to shortstop. So I think it's going to be fascinating, the lineup today and moving forward, to see what it is.
And Sammy, the other thing that I think is just fascinating today is the enigma that is Yu Darvish. He's someone that we feel like we know incredibly well, but for the last 3 months, point of fact, Darvish had almost no interaction with the team. He could not while he was on the restricted list. So his rehab has been done away from Padres, medical officials. His return in terms of pitching to high school or college kids at high schools, all of that done not under the Padres' watchful eye. His first outing, of course, was, allowing a run per inning and having to be taken out in the third inning. So I feel like we are kind of putting our own filter on you in terms of our expectations for him, but I've got to be honest, I can't put a filter on him right now. I really don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I thought, look, obviously he came out of the first start off the IL healthy, which is most important. He threw 63 pitches. I thought maybe he'd end up throwing a little bit more than that. But you're right, Craig. It was up and down. I mean, 2 2/3 innings. He gave up 4 hits. He did strike out 4, but he walked 2. In fact, as I was writing down my starting pitcher notes and was taking a look at him and George Kirby for tonight, there wasn't really, to your point, like a big takeaway from that game other than that, the stuff seemed to be coming out pretty nicely, and he came out of it healthy, and now he's making a second start, which is obviously a good thing. So you hope you takes a step forward, I would say, number 1 in effectiveness and number 2 in pitch count. The good thing is that he's not facing a Mariners offense that is very good. I mean, you look at the overall numbers for this Mariners offense. I mean, they are last in batting average. They strike out as pretty much as anybody in baseball. It is not a great offensive team. So you hope Yu Darvish is facing the kind of lineup that he could take advantage of today and get a good amount of swing and miss. But I'm interested to see what Yu looks like today. And I think overall, just to talk about the starting pitching, look, the Padres could use a little bit more consistency here. You look at obviously, Joe had what was a weird outing on Sunday. He was so good early on, then the fly ball in right field, and things just, went totally the other direction. Dylan Cease gets through 6 innings on a Saturday, gives up the 4 runs. But look, they had an early 2-0 lead in that game, and then a 3-run home run. So the number 9 batter totally changed the complexion of that outing. And even though he got through 6 innings, 4 runs allowed, we're at the point of the year where, hey, yeah, little moments like that, giving up a 3-run home run to the number 9 hitter, they matter. Where, hey, there are going to be days where giving up that home run could be the difference in a game. So they need Darvish to step forward. They need Cease to be really good. They need Musgrove to be really good. I think overall they're going to need some really, really great starting pitching here, and we'll see if that starts tonight with Yu Darvish. But I'm with you. I'm intrigued by this second outing and to see what we can take away from it.
All right, Sammy, let's let you go and get ready, enjoy lunch, little relaxation, and then you'll be in here in the studio getting ready for that Eco Water SoCal Padres pregame show at 5:40, first pitch at 6:40 tonight. Appreciate everything you do for this station every day and every time you're on this show with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam.
I appreciate you having me on, and I apologize if you heard the planes going overhead. I guess doing this interview in Point Loma was not my best decision. I'm right in the flight path here, so hopefully it wasn't too loud behind me.
No, Sam, I took it as ambient noise that reminds us that the Mets are a lingering problem. And, just like at Shea Stadium where the planes are always overhead, it was just like, okay, I got it. It's a little subtle reminder. The Mets are still out there. All right, Sammy, be well, brother.
All right, thanks.
Love Sammy. What a good egg.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him about those Mets. What a comeback.
I know, but then he was going to talk right into the soundbite, which
I was going to give him 30 seconds.
Here comes the bumper now. I was just looking at that clock going, he's going to start going, and then this bumper is going to hit him.
Comes at you fast.
It does. Life comes at you fast. So does the 12 o'clock sports fix. It's coming at you fast. 6 minutes from now. So stay right there, everybody. Get your lunches ready. Pop them in the microwave or out of the fridge, whatever you need. We're back with the Sports Fix right after this. Andy and Elsten on 97.3 The Fan. Lunch hour has arrived on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. It's Annie and Elsten hitting the halfway point of our 4-hour get-together with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan, with Annie Heilbrunn and Braden Suprenant. Craig Elsten with you in our Odyssey studios overlooking sunny Murphy Canyon. Time to get your lunch prepared as we prepare your brain with all the sports news of the day in the fix. All the sports news of the day presented digestibly from 12 to 12:15. It is your 12 o'clock sports fix, and Annie leads it off with your baseball news.
All right, to start off the baseball news, we're going to head up north, up the I-5 or whatever it's called. Yoshinobu Yamamoto returns to the Dodgers starting rotation tonight. It's the 5. He's been out due to a right rotator cuff strain for almost 3 months. He will face off against fellow Japan native Shota Imanaga for the Cubs. The two teams are in Los Angeles for this series. So they get a guy back, but they also lose most of their pitching staff. The Cardinals are set to call up infield prospect Thomas Sujasi for his Major League debut, according to reports. The 22-year-old was acquired from the Rangers in the 2023 deadline trade. Baseball America currently ranks him as the system's 5th best prospect. The Yankees promoted outfielder Jason Dominguez ahead of yesterday's game against the Royals at Yankee Stadium. Dominguez made his hotly anticipated MLB debut last September, putting up a .980 OPS and 160 WRC plus in 8 games as the Yankees center fielder before he tore his UCL and required season-ending Tommy John surgery. The Red Sox released Rich Hill yesterday. The veteran southpaw can latch on elsewhere for the final few weeks of the regular season, but since he'd be signing on after the start of September, he will not be eligible for this year's postseason if he continues playing. Boston designated the 44-year-old Hill for assignment on Friday when they promoted rookie righty Luis Guerrero. That ended his latest stint with the Sox after 4 big league appearances where he logged 3 2/3 innings of 2-run ball, striking out 5 of 15 batters faced while issuing 3 walks. It marked the 20th straight year for Rich Hill in the big leagues. The Mariners will take on the Padres tonight in Seattle. It'll be righty Yu Darvish for the Padres going against righty George Kirby for the Mariners. First pitch, 6:40 p.m.
From the baseball news to the baseball scores, which are basically news in themselves when you get into the pennant race, here's Braden.
Scores from yesterday, not too many games. It was the Reds beating the Braves 1-0 in a makeup game. Our boy Nick Martinez, which was able to duel it out against the Atlanta Braves, pitched that 1-0 shutout. Phillies over the Rays 2-1. The Pirates outlast the Marlins 3-2. Yankees all over the Royals 11-4 in the Bronx. Red Sox pound the Orioles 12-3. Mets come back to beat the Blue Jays 3-2 north of the border. In the Twin Cities, it was the Halos getting the W. They won 6-2. Guardians beat the White Sox on the south side 5-3. And the Cubs buried the Dodgers 10-4 at Chavez Ravine. Walker Buehler takes the loss. He is now 1-5 with a 5.95 ERA. Padres are off, but they're back in action today against the Seattle Mariners. Yu Darvish versus George Kirby, as Annie said. First pitch at 6:40. Equator SoCal Padres pregame show at 5:40 with Sam Levitt. That's it for me on baseball. I'll be back with football in just a little bit. But first, here's Craig.
Here I come. And I've got all sorts of little tiny things for you, starting with NBA. NBA training camps are right around the corner. Lakers got 2 pieces of bad news yesterday, just in time for, for that blessed event. Backup center Christian Wood, who was out since March last year with an arthroscopic knee surgery, just had another arthroscopic knee surgery on the same left knee. He will be reevaluated in 8 weeks. That puts him out for the start of the regular season, or maybe forever, based on how the last knee situation went. We'll find out. Meanwhile, Jared Vanderbilt, who felt like he was out all of last year, still dealing with a foot sprain suffered in February. Damn.
It's a long time.
It's a long foot sprain. Mm-hmm. Well, he's expected to miss training camp and at least some of the preseason.
You mean it's like a foot break and not a sprain?
How do you stay sprained for 7 months?
Maybe he didn't let it heal. I don't know.
Yeah, would he been out on the dance circuit the whole summer? Like, what's going on? Well, that's a question for the Lakers beat writers. In the WNBA, 3 games tonight, including the New York Liberty. They have a chance to set the league wins record, but have yet to win a championship in franchise history. They take on Dallas in Texas. Liberty are 29-6 on the season. Indiana is off today. In the NHL, the Seattle Kraken have agreed to a new 4-year contract extension with one of their original players. Defenseman Adam Larson will make $21 million over the course of his second extension in Seattle. On to international soccer. The UEFA Nations League is taking place. 3 matches are underway right now. England and Finland are scoreless. All of these are in about the 12th minute. Netherlands is leading Germany 1-0. No score between Ireland and Greece. Later today, the U.S. takes on New Zealand in an international friendly on True TV and the Max app. The U.S. will be led by Mikey Varas, who is the rumored soon-to-be first head coach of San Diego FC, the new MLS team. However, Varas is currently the interim head coach of the U.S. men's national team. He was quite upset after his first time on the sidelines, a 2-1 loss to Canada in front of a half-empty stadium in Kansas City on Saturday. It was the first win for the Canucks on American soil in 67 years. And afterwards, Varas said that he didn't think the team had the right mentality. He said, quote, "The mentality is on the players. They know it. We speak the truth to each other. I love those guys, but they know that mentality to fight, run, and to sacrifice. I can't do it for them. That's on them." New Zealand, which lost 3-0 to Mexico Saturday at the Rose Bowl, if they somehow pull out a win today, it would be the Americans' first 4-game losing streak since 2007. So get with it, U.S. team. You can watch that on the Max app or True TV. Let's go back to Braden for the football story.
I got a couple college football stories and a couple NFL football stories. Let's start in college. 4 ex-Michigan players, including former quarterback Denard Robinson and wide receiver Braylon Edwards, have filed a class action lawsuit against the NCAA and Big Ten Network seeking more than $50 million for being, quote, wrongfully and unlawfully denied the opportunity to earn money off their name, image, and likeness. The lawsuit says the NCAA and the Big Ten Network, quote, have systematically exploited these iconic moments that the players created during their careers at Michigan. The lawsuit is on behalf of those who played for Michigan before 2016. Only since 2021 have college athletes been able to profit off name, image, and likeness. The NCAA declined to comment on the lawsuit. In May, the NCAA, its power conferences, and attorneys representing Division I athletes agreed to settle 3 major antitrust lawsuits that threatened to upend the business model of college sports. The defendants agreed to pay roughly $2.7 billion in damages. Any Division I athlete who played a sport from 2016 to present day is eligible for past damages. The 2016 cutoff is due to the statute of limitations on the initial House versus NCAA lawsuit, which was filed in 2020. So a couple of these guys are trying to get their $50 million with a different lawsuit. We'll see how that plays out for them. Colorado safety Shiloh Sanders is expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks following surgery Sunday to repair a right forearm injury. Buffalo's head coach Deion Sanders, the father of Shiloh, and Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders confirmed the surgery and the outlook. Deion Sanders said Shiloh, who suffered an injury in the first quarter of Saturday's 28-10 loss at Nebraska, has been a fast healer from previous ailments, including an offseason knee injury. Quote, "I've never seen nothing like it. The healing ability," Deion Sanders said. Shiloh Sanders went to the locker room after tackling Huskers running back Dante Dodwell on a run play. He had 9 tackles, including 1 for loss in Colorado's season-opening win against North Dakota State. So Shiloh Sanders will be out for a couple of weeks. On the National Football League, got a lot of issues with Tyreek Hill and the Miami-Dade Police Department before the game on Sunday. A police officer is seeking reinstatement from administrative duty after his involvement in the Sunday detainment of Tyreek Hill, while the Miami Dolphins star's agent has called for the officers in the incident to be fired. Attorneys Ignacio Alvarez of Algo Law Firm and Israel Reyes of the Reyes law firm, who are representing the Miami-Dade Police Department officer, issued a statement Monday calling for their client's immediate reinstatement. They also referred to the decision to place their client on administrative duties as premature, although they fully support Miami-Dade PD Director Stephanie Daniels' call for a thorough review. Neither Alvarez nor Reyes immediately responded when asked whether their statement was crafted before or after the body camera footage from the incident was made public on Monday. That has been circling on social media. We'll see how that continues to play out. NFL investigating latest lawsuit against Deshaun Watson. NFL says it is reviewing a civil lawsuit filed Monday accusing Deshaun Watson of sexual assault and battery on October of 2020 when he was a member of the Houston Texans. Quote, "We are reviewing the complaint and we will look into the matter under the personal conduct policy, not looking at commissioner's exempt list as there's been no formal charges and the league's review has just begun," league spokesperson Brian McCarthy said. According to the lawsuit, which was filed in Harris County, Texas, the alleged actions occurred before Watson and a woman who goes by the name Jane Doe in the court filing were set to have dinner at the women's apartment. Lawsuit states that Watson met the woman, a single mother, at the Houston restaurant and bar, managed to get her phone number, and initially attempted to have her meet him at the Houston Galleria for a date. Reluctant to meet Wilson in public, the woman instead agreed to a dinner date at her apartment, according to the lawsuit. On the evening of the date, according to the lawsuit, she said Watson had trouble finding her apartment and began aggressively yelling and screaming at her on the phone, saying he didn't, quote, "have time for this." Lawsuit alleges that while applying makeup in her bathroom, the woman then found Watson completely naked on her bed, laying face down on his stomach. Watson then requested that the woman massage him in certain areas, and the woman, quote, "tried to appease Watson by rubbing his back rather than said other body part," according to the lawsuit, which was actually on his backside. So take that for what it's worth. Okay. There you go. That's the latest on Deshaun Watson.
Okay. I need money in the chat. Should have hired the law firm of Adam, Scott, and Suarez.
That would have.
I think that's very fitting in this particular case.
Deshaun Watson, the number one reason why the Browns were an easy cut in the NFL Eliminator.
I would agree with that.
How's this guy still? Well, I know how, but
well, he's not good anymore, so we'll see.
Not good in many ways. Just ungood. There's your 12 o'clock sports fix, Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Yeah, I don't want to get completely into it, but watching that body cam footage, it's not good.
It's not good for. There's a couple things there. Did Tyreek Hill fully comply? No. Did the police make that? Did they escalate that more? Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, I will say, and I think this is fair, for him to have tinted windows and roll them back up, even though we know it's Tyreek Hill and he's not going to do any damage, if you're a police officer, you don't know what's inside the car. I can see where we have a problem. But on the same side, if that was the problem, then the police would have backed away from the window. I do think both parties are at fault here. But in terms of escalating the situation, I do agree. I think the police department did escalate the situation. I did think the way the police department handled Calais Campbell was even worse than the way that they handled Tyreek Hill. That was kind of ridiculous as well.
I agree. And, not surprising that the officer didn't know who it was, and you shouldn't expect him to. And that's the type of privilege that you can't assign to yourself in a traffic stop, and similarly, I'm positive the dude in Louisville didn't know who Scotty Scheffler was, right? And
nor should it matter.
Nor should it matter.
In
That's
more
exactly
cases than
right.
not.
Nor should it matter. It should not matter. But I also do understand this was right outside the stadium, that Tyreek didn't want to be recognized. I also can see that. And should that matter to the police officer? No, it should not matter to the police officer. It's completely irrelevant. But clearly the end result was excessive.
Where Tyreek Hill screwed up was rolling the window back up.
Yes.
And saying, "Don't beat on my window." Okay. That was a spot where he thought he was going to get out of it because he's an athlete. Where the police immediately screwed up was the whole dragging him out of the car while Tyreek is physically getting up out of the car as instructed.
Yeah.
The rolling up of the windows where Tyreek messed up, and then after that, dragging him out of the car, and then the excessiveness after the fact is where the police screwed up.
Couldn't agree more. And it's not necessary. And when it happens to a high-profile person, it becomes a story. And when it happens to a non-high-profile person, it's just Monday, or Sunday, or Tuesday, or Wednesday, or any other day. So I'm happy that there's body cam footage.
That's important. It's important that that's for everybody.
Yes, because transparency is not a bad thing.
Correct.
The only reason it's a bad thing is if you're doing something wrong. So I appreciate the transparency of the
It
situation.
can protect both sides.
Yep.
Correct. It can protect a police officer who's doing exactly the right thing and is unfairly accused. Also, it can reveal a police officer who is escalating a situation and is excessive in their work. Let's take a time out. There's all the news that's fit to speak. But when we come back, we haven't chatted a lot of college for the Aztecs. Interesting story in the Union Tribune today. Their uncertain future, how it intersects with Oregon State and Washington State, the Pac-2. Could it become the Pac-8? Could it become the Pac-12? Could the Mountain West dissolve? Could Oregon State become the top team in the Mountain West? All possibilities on the table to be discussed when we return. Andy and Elsten, your midday hang on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. The Odyssey app lets you jump back to the moments you missed on 97.3 The Fan. So while you're listening, you can see what you missed and click to listen on demand. If you missed a guest, a feature, something crazy that happened from earlier, we've got you covered. Download the free Odyssey app, search 97.3 The Fan, tap earlier today, and you're set. Andy and Elsten back with you. Little college football talk here. I was certainly curious to read Mark Ziegler's story in the Union Tribune today about kind of the various paths that San Diego State could take within the Mountain West, or maybe within the Pac-2, or maybe the Big 12, or maybe the Pac-8, or does the conference dissolve altogether? As usual, Braden, every time we talk about college football, something is new, something is unprecedented, and something is somewhat like, what? And that's where we are again today.
Break this one down for us.
Well, there's a lot of things in this article that are line up with some of the other stuff that I know. But, essentially what is going on with the Pac, there's two teams in the Pac-12, correct? We got that,
Yes.
right? With Oregon State and
Pac-2.
Washington State. Yes, they are the Pac-2 that they call themselves the Pac-12, trying to keep the name alive. They own the assets of the Pac-12 network, which is a gigantic state-of-the-art studio in San Francisco with a bunch of resources that is obviously not getting used, but it's a very valuable item. In owning that, that's really the only thing really keeping them relevant right now to other conferences potentially. But since they are a two-team conference that owns assets, in 2 years, they have a 2-year window to try to get to the minimum amount of teams, which I think is 8, to be recognized as a conference in college athletics. So they have a 2-year window to get to that point. Now, during that 2-year window, they can either add teams, right, or they could go and join a different conference or whatever it is, but they have a 2-year window. In year 1, they decided to make a deal with the Mountain West Conference to do a scheduling deal for football specifically. All their other sports joined the West Coast Conference for sports. So, except for Oregon State baseball, because they're really good, so they're going to go independent. But all of Washington State and Oregon State's teams, majority of them, are in the West Coast Conference, and football has they call it a scheduling alliance with the Mountain West, which means they get a bunch of games filled out that don't count towards the Mountain West standings. Oregon State and Washington State can't win the Mountain West. They just play each other for a Pac-2 championship. And I'm pretty sure, like, the game San Diego State played against Oregon State, even though it's part of the scheduling alliance, it doesn't count towards the Mountain West standings. So it's kind of like a pseudo combined deal. As part of that, they signed a contract agreement and some fine print that Oregon State and Washington State will not poach any of the teams from the Mountain West to dissolve the Mountain West and add them to a Pacific Conference.
Right.
They have a lot of exit fee penalties if that is the case. But the thing that's most notable of this, that is really raising a lot of questions right now, is there was a deadline that just passed, I think a week ago, for the scheduling alliance to continue in 2026, right? Which would be the last year that they would have to have a scheduling alliance unless they go somewhere else or bring in the team so they're in a conference that's recognized by the NCAA. That came and went, and both sides are nowhere near on the same side of where it needs to be, because Oregon State and Washington State are paying, I think, like $15 million to play Mountain West schools as part of this alliance. So Mountain West wanted more money than what the two Pac-2 schools were willing to give. And so now the question is, what is going on with the future of the Pac-12? And then in relation to, what is the future of San Diego State? And that's what led up to this great article by Mark Ziegler in the San Diego Union Tribune, which there's a couple of things that I do take away from it. For some quotes from J.D. Wicker, some that are positive and some that are like very head scratching.
So here were the scenarios that Ziegler put forward, and just kind of
6, right?
Yeah, dancing through these, and it's basically what happens to the two teams from the Pac-2. Then how does that impact San Diego State? So, option 1 wouldn't impact the Aztecs at all, which is Big 12, which reportedly said no to Oregon State, and Washington State changes their mind.
There's a caveat on that. it sounds like the Big 12 has had discussions of maybe just adding them in football because they want the Pac-12 network. So the behind-the-scenes stuff is Pac-12 network becomes Big 12 network with ESPN. They bring those assets in only for football so they could take the place of UConn and potentially Gonzaga, who's going to join in the other sports. And then maybe down the line, you can add the other sports. But that being said, that's not a bad deal for Oregon State and Washington State.
Right.
To have all your teams on a West Coast conference where you don't have to travel, and then football that makes all the money, that can handle the travel, goes to the Big 12 with the assets. It's a very intriguing discussion for Oregon State and Washington State. So that's the caveat to what Ziegler put in. The rumors that are not, they're behind the scenes.
I just love how he wrote that the UT requested by email and in person to speak with Oregon State athletic director at Saturday's game, but he was not made available, although he was spotted in the press box. The power of pen.
Right.
Eyes are always on you.
By the way, I asked to talk to you, and
there.
you said no,
Yes.
but you were there. You could have done it, and there it is in the story. Second option seems like a real long shot to me, which is hoping that the ACC lawsuit kicks teams out of the Atlantic Coast Conference, spits out Stanford and Cal back into the wild, and then they are lured back into a reconstituted Pac-12, and then they find SMU out there, and then maybe at that point some Mountain West teams want to come and join the fun.
And that's, again, all based on Brett Yormark trying to pry Florida State and Clemson out of the ACC with the additions of maybe NC State, Virginia Tech, adding the two basketball schools, and then adding Oregon State and Washington State. Then all of a sudden you'd have chaos in the ACC. They would need a landing spot. Maybe they'll be in this new Pac-2 with San Diego State. That's kind of how that plays out.
All right, option 3, they do it themselves. Oregon State and Washington State rebuild a Pac-8. And while they have agreed not to poach Mountain West teams, I guess this would mean Mountain West teams would willingly come across the line. I'm not exactly sure how this one matches.
The Pac-12 also agreed not to leave for other conferences as they had their fingers behind their back.
Right.
So, I mean, all of this is just,
So, okay, what's the difference between options 3 and 4? Because option 3 involves Ohio State, Washington State, and a bunch of
Oregon State.
Pardon me, yes.
Although that would be sick.
OSU, Oregon State. Yeah, Ohio State changes a lot. I'd say it changes the whole thing.
That changes my opinion on this real quick.
Yeah, really fast, really fast. Okay, so option 3 is Oregon State and Washington State add teams to a Pac-8. Option 4 is the Mountain West dissolves, and then basically the same thing happens, right? They create a new conference that would be the same as the Pac-8.
Instead of joining the Mountain West, Oregon State and Washington State would convince the Mountain West to dissolve and take everyone but the bottom feeders. Okay. It's kind of the same thing, I guess. I think the only difference is whoever's in charge of the Mountain West, whatever her name is, the commissioner, I think she just stays in charge. Maybe it's called the Mountain West still. They basically just go Nevada, Hawaii, Utah State, San Jose State, see ya.
Navarez. Gloria Navarez.
Yes, Gloria Navarez. Maybe she's in charge. Maybe they give her a big contract. And then they go, tell those teams to get lost.
Option 5 for them would be to go independent. That's not going to happen. And
that's a disaster written all over it.
Complete no chance. No chance. And option number 6 is just they join the Mountain West. Why don't they just join the Mountain West?
Because they'd lose a ton of money. You don't want to. It's something that's all. Like I too kind of agree that like I feel like the Pac-12 name kind of means something, right? I think it's got like the tradition and all that stuff. It's different than the Mountain West. I think they're really trying to hang on to the Pac-12 name. But some of those options seem like they're very much the same. Like 3, 4, and 6, are like all the same.
They all wind up with the same schools in the same conference.
Right. It just depends on what the name is.
Is there like a home run deal for them? Like
for the Oregon State and Washington State?
No, for San Diego State.
Oh, for San Diego State.
Are you picking the best of not the somewhat okay deals, or is there like a home run deal for them here?
Here's the home run deal. I think they screwed up, and here's the quote in the article.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't understand. Maybe it doesn't make financial. I don't understand how this doesn't make financial sense. Here's the quote from J.D. Wicker. He explains the turning down of joining the Big 12, which I thought was catastrophically a bad idea when it happened. And to me, maybe I'm wrong in this. This quote makes it sound worse. Quote from J.D. Wicker, the athletic director of San Diego State. With anything you look at, you have to do the financial calculus of does it make sense? It's like with the Big 12. The Big 12 wanted us to come in at basically a half share with no opportunity to make any money in the new TV deal that they just started, which ends in 2030. Why would we do that? We would have been sitting at the bottom of the league looking up with no opportunity to do anything. Well, a half share of the Big 12 is like 3 times as much money as what they're making right now in the Mountain West. And the way the Big 12 is shaping up, for a half share, you would be guaranteed to be in a power conference through all of this. And a power conference, by the way, that is thriving compared to you'd be in the 3rd best conference in college athletics and in the best basketball conference in the country. And what is San Diego State's best sport?
College basketball.
It's college basketball. And so right now, if you said yes to the Big 12, if you would have said yes to the Big 12 before the Pac-12 exploded, and you would have gone to the Big 12, right now you'd be sitting in probably an 18-team size conference, maybe even 16. Maybe Colorado didn't get the nod in San Diego State instead. And they're thinking about adding UConn to basketball, and they're thinking about adding Gonzaga in basketball, and you already have Arizona, and you have Kansas, and you have Baylor. You would have the best basketball conference in the country showing up at Viejas Arena on a Tuesday night and on a Saturday night every single week. They would be much-watched TV. They're on ESPN all the time. You take a half share for a couple of years, and then on the new contract, guess what? I guarantee you would get the full share back. And if not, that's still better than what you're doing right now in the Mountain West. So let me ask you this. I went to the game against Oregon State at Snap. The place was empty. If Oklahoma State shows up next Saturday, is that stadium empty? I don't think so.
Not the same. I mean,
it's not. I guarantee you, all those people from Oklahoma State would show up.
Right.
If you have a November contest against West Virginia, which would be they would barely do that. But let's take one of the lower levels. I mean, Arizona shows up in November. That place isn't packed.
No, I
on
agree.
A Saturday night. I mean, it's better than playing Hawaii. It just sets you up for so much more. I can't believe he said that in the article.
But so now that invite is essentially revoked. Like, you're not really becoming part of that, right?
Well, yeah.
They're not offering anymore.
Right.
No, they're
Like,
the Big 12
ship has sailed.
From what I've been
you got
told,
invited to the party, but now
you got invited to the party.
Invitation's out.
You said thanks, but no thanks, because they thought they were going to get a full share in the Pac-12 because they didn't see the writing on the wall.
Right.
They were ready to jump on the sinking ship. The ship sank, and they're like, okay, what's going on now? They don't have anywhere to go. And I don't think they're going to have anywhere to go in the near future, aside from this maybe makeshift Pac-12. But if Oregon State and Washington State send their football teams to the Big 12, San Diego State is in a bad spot. They fumbled the bag so bad right now. So bad.
The second half of that quote, I feel like bolsters your case, honestly, and I'm pretty much in agreement with you. But this, which is a statement of defense by J.D. Wicker, feels to me like kind of an admission of thinking in a negative space. He says, quote, "We have a great opportunity in the Mountain West to make the college football playoff. We've already shown we can play in the national title game in men's basketball, and we were one win away from the softball College World Series. So, yeah, financially it has to work." Okay, here's where I take issue with that. Yes, today you have a better chance to make the college football playoff.
For the next 2 years, maybe.
Yeah, as the last team, the 12th seed out of 12, as the final, conference champion. Obviously, it's not going to be this year. Who knows? But if next year, they could do that, yes, they'd make it. They'd make it. I'm using air quotes again. I'm just like living in the first half hour of Heathers. They'd make it. They're going to be a 35-point underdog against the number one team in the country, and they're going to be dusted.
That and it's like, they got to be able to beat a ranked team on the road. I mean, Northern Illinois got that spot right now because they beat Notre Dame on the road.
Right.
I mean, San Diego State's schedule is never going to put them in a spot to be in that conversation. And by the way, we've talked about this a ton, especially with money right now, and the big conferences want more. I mean, who knows how long they're going to include the group of 5? I mean, to me, this entire move, or should I say lack thereof by San Diego State, is looking at the tree and not seeing the forest of potential future. They let a nickel hold up $1 on this entire thing. Eat money for a little bit. By the way, again, a half share of the Big 12, because the Big 12 payouts like $32 to $40-something million if you start including bowl payouts and everything else. San Diego State getting half of that's like $20 million, $16 to $20 million. Again, I'm just kind of like paraphrasing right now. I don't know what the exact number, but I know it's at least that. They're making like $4 million from the Mountain West. A half share at $20 million to me sounds a lot better than $4 million. You take your lumps for a couple of years, and then you're safe.
Yeah,
you found a safe landing spot.
Break them to have this Mountain West exit fee. Is that the issue here? That I don't know. I just keep seeing this in the article.
Yes, they had to pay an exit fee in order to get out of the Mountain West that they were willing to pay. To go to the Pac-12 or whatever like that. But even then, it's to me, it would have been worth it in the long term if the Big 12 is offering you a half share.
Yeah. And by the way, just again, speaking extemporaneously, if they were the 12 seed, they'd play in the first round against the 5 seed.
Correct.
And then they would, if they somehow won that game, which they would also be a massive underdog against maybe the second or third place team in the SEC or something, then you would go on and face the number 1 seed in the next round. And obviously that would be incredible. But I just feel like, Braden, that there's a it's okay for us to be good on our little corner kind of mentality to this whole thing, as opposed to, hey, listen, it's a lot easier to win the Mountain West, and then we get into the NCAA tournament, and then who knows, once in a lifetime event, we could win 5 straight games, get to the national championship. But if you're in a conference with Gonzaga and Kansas and Arizona, you might finish 8th. Or you might be a number 1 seed when your program matures to the point that you can win that conference.
8th. Craig, if they finish 8th in that basketball conference, they're in the tournament and they don't have to sweat it out.
Right.
They're going to be in.
Right.
I mean, TCU is not that – they're better in basketball, but all you got to do in the Big 12, and I know it's difficult, you go 500, you're in. Like, there's no sweating it out. There's no like, oh, man, we lost to New Mexico. Like, we better win the rest of our games, or we have to win the Mountain West tournament in UNLV. Here's the other thing that with that quote that you brought up from J.D. Wicker about, we were so close. That is pre-major conference realignment. That is pre-major NIL BS. San Diego State is not going to be able to hang with those schools. Not only do they have to outpay for some of their athletes right now, and I think basketball is going to be hurting quick. These players know where the best teams play. It's in the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the SEC. That's where kids want to go to school. And if you're playing in the Mountain West, they're going to be like, okay, yeah, I guess. But you're not going to get the level of athlete you need to be able to accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish in that quote with that. And the other thing, here's the other, you went through like what the potential schedule would be. We're talking about, think about, I think you brought up a good point, Craig, with we're okay being kind of good in our little circle. That's great for like your alumni that's diehard San Diego State. We are in a city that has so many transplants, that has so much going on. You have empty stadiums for San Diego State. You can't get anybody to back them. You know what's an easy way to start backing these guys? They're in the power conversation. I'm telling you right now, for anybody that is a fair weather college fan, you got New Mexico showing up in basketball. You're like, okay.
Right.
You have Kansas showing up in basketball to Viejas Arena. People are like, I know about Kansas basketball. That sounds fun. I want to see Kansas play.
Right.
Same thing in football. The Big 12's not as good as like the SEC and the Big 10. They're trying to get there, but you got Oklahoma State and Kansas State and now Arizona that's in that conference and Utah showing up. A casual transplant citizen that might be somewhat into college athletics would be like, Utah's ranked in the top 25. Maybe I should go check out the game. That sounds fun. I mean, let's talk business-wise. How are you going to fill the seats?
Yeah.
Fumbled the bag. They were talking to a 10 at the bar, and they just fumbled the bag. They left without getting her number. What are we doing, San Diego State?
I hate to say it, I was literally thinking of a very similar analogy. Like,
Seriously.
settling for, hey, well, really, 10's out of my league,
Guys, guy or girl is talking with, like, the best-looking other side at the bar, whatever it is. And you go back and you tell your friends, and they go, "Did you get their number?" And they're like, and she already left, or he already left.
I'm happy where I am.
That is what San Diego State just did. They fumbled the bag so bad.
I agree with
and you're never going to see that person again. Rough. That's a fat
I don't know that I
L.
disagree. I just think there's got to be something. I mean, they got to be thinking about something that we're not necessarily
You're giving them too much credit
looking
right
at.
now.
Like they've got to look at all these angles too,
What's
right?
their answer? I mean, what's
I think
what's
they just
the caveat?
whiffed. I think they bet on the
whiffed.
Pac-12, and then the Pac-12 went bloop, and now they're left.
Here's what I think would happen.
Right, now what do we do now?
San Diego State and their alumni for so long wanted to be the Pac-12, right? They wanted to be in the Pac-12
100%.
so bad. It
Absolutely.
was like, and it was BS, man. USC and UCLA is keeping us out, and this is BS, and we deserve to be in the
Correct.
Pac-12. They got so fixated on a logo and a name that they missed the big picture. I remember a couple of years ago on these airwaves pleading they need to go to the Big 12, and everybody's like, no, it's dumb. The Pac-12 is where we need to be with USC and UCLA. And I'm like, guys, they're not going to be there. They're leaving. If you don't see this coming, it's going to end catastrophically for you. And that's exactly what happened.
Here we are.
They just thought everything was going to work out, and we're finally going to get into the Pac-12. It's like, no. There's going to be nothing left. You're going to be Will Smith and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is like looking around going, where'd everybody go? Oh, it's just us now. It's us and the two guys that believed in the Pac-12 in Oregon State and Washington State. Just holding hands. Hey, here we are.
Great segment. This hour on 97.3 The Fan brought to you by Indeed. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Their all-in-one platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. And Indeed's interview tool lets you schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from their website. Visit Indeed.com/credit. When we come back, it's time for Silly Games, your daily chance to qualify for a 2-night stay in Las Vegas at either the Wynn or Encore, plus 2 tickets to see Awakening, the thrilling spectacle at Wynn Las Vegas. Today's silly game is the game of ridiculously easy trivia called Everybody Knows. So we are looking for a contestant right now, and as such, let's open up the phone lines. 833-288-0973 is our number. 833-288-0973. Give us a call if you want to play the game. We'll get you screened up, and when we come back, we play Everybody Knows next. Annie and Elsten on The Fan. look at us getting all fired up, talking about San Diego State and Big 12 and opportunities missed. And what we did is
Bag fumbles. We fumbled the bag on the clock.
we fumbled the clock bag. We did. So what's going to happen? Those of y'all on hold to play our silly game, just stay there. We're going to play the game at 1 o'clock because we've got like 4 minutes left in this segment. So we don't want to mess up the entire clock as opposed to just messing up this segment.
I also have to say, too, just looking at the chat and everything, like for SDSU, that decision is not made by one person.
No.
There's no way
Right.
that their athletic director is just making that decision. That goes way higher than him. So if you want to be mad, take it out elsewhere or among, the
Right.
administration there.
Yeah, I mean, don't blame J.D. Wicker, but J.D. Wicker was in the room.
I'm sure in the room, exactly, but there's no way that he's making a decision like that on his own solely.
I mean, he could have said yes and got denied. Moving your entire
Right.
athletic department to a
Right.
different conference involves definitely the president and
could have fought
the
for
board of
it.
directors
Right.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Because all of these, because I've seen a lot of these, like the board of regents or whatever the thing for Colorado was, everybody had to vote yes on that for Colorado to go to the Big 12. I mean, there was like 30 people on this thing for them to move. Same thing with the UC schools, right? Remember the whole UC chaos because UCLA was leaving Cal behind? I mean,
Yeah.
that took months for them to get the approval on that. I mean, it's, and especially for San Diego State being a state school and leaving all the other state schools behind, I'm sure that would have been even more so. So there's a lot more politics.
Yeah, and like we don't know who was advocating. You're right. He could have been advocating for it, Wicker or whoever among the athletics department, and then be shot down by the board or the president or alumni or who knows.
And in that scenario, that hypothetical scenario, being a good company person, JD would then come out and say the exact same things that he said, whether it was his true heart's feeling or not, because he's defending the honor of the university and of the athletic department in that circumstance. I think it's just pretty clearly a missed opportunity. And
It's a bag fumble by the university.
Was there not enough known at the time for them to make a qualified decision, or is that one where you make it no matter what? Like,
Well, there's a lot of information out there that
Oh, okay.
we all knew the Pac-12 wasn't going to survive. They were all playing the game of we're going to stick together, and they said that out loud. But
Oh,
behind
and
the
then-
scenes, everybody was saving
people
their
were
own
jumping
ass.
ship. Right, exactly.
Right.
yeah.
Everybody's saving their own ass, grabbing the life preservers with
And
like
then you can't be the only one left.
right.
Yeah.
So everybody was like, "We're in this together," and saying all the right things. Meanwhile, there was reports that Arizona's brass was in Texas meeting with Brett Yormark. Well, what's that all about?
The intrigue.
Right.
right.
I followed this thing close for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But it was all the same stuff. They said all the right things in the media, and then behind the scenes, their actions were saying other things. Well,
Yeah.
why is Utah in Texas right now? Well, I don't know. They're just there, just hanging out.
Right. Right.
Why is Brett Yormark in the same building as the guys from Utah and Arizona right now? That's kind of odd.
You're just friends.
They just happen to be there.
And at the same time, you can, if you're going to be with a forgiving mindset, you can imagine a world where, they misread the signals and they said the Pac-12 is our dream. And yeah, some teams are going to leave, but just enough for us to go in.
Right.
Just enough to open the door for us to go in. And then here we are, right where we've always wanted to be. Yeah, USC and UCLA aren't there, but
We get to be the Southern California flagship of the Pac-12.
bingo.
I think
Bingo.
that
It
is
was
what
enticing,
they got played on that one. Because remember, they sent something to the Mountain West saying we're out. Remember that?
Yeah.
And they had to backtrack quick because the Pac-12's like, those other teams are leaving now. So they were set. They thought it was going to happen.
Wasn't there that letter that was sent by
Yes.
the president?
Yes,
Yeah.
because they thought they were going to the
crazy.
Pac-12, but they were about to jump into something that wasn't going to exist anymore.
All right, that's it for our number 3. We are going to play our silly game, so if you are on hold, stay there. 833-288-0973. Everybody knows next. All right, last hour of the program for a Tuesday Padres baseball later tonight. Let's have some fun. It's your midday hang. Annie and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Annie Halbern right there. There's Braden over there. I'm Craig right here. If you're watching YouTube, you see us all on the 97.3 The Fan page. Make sure to subscribe for free. Hit that notifications bell so you know every time that we go live. We are also a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, of course, the Odyssey app. We are streaming live worldwide on the Odyssey app, and not for nothing, they're putting this out on radio, too. So 97.3 FM radio. However, whenever, wherever you're listening, we say thank you for being here. Normally at 12:45, we play a silly game. We got all up in our Pac-2 feels.
Yes. I don't know that I've ever said that sentence before, but those Pac-2 feels were intense.
We were in them.
They hit hard sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
We were in our feelings. So we had to push it one segment. But now it is time for Everybody Knows, the game of ridiculously easy trivia. And today's contestant is Robert in Santee. Hi, Robert. Welcome to the show.
Hello, folks.
Hello, Robert.
It's great to have you, sir. You're about to play Everybody Knows, but first, tell the audience just a little bit about yourself.
I'm just driving around delivering Amazon packages and trying to think about a new show I should be streaming soon.
Okay.
Fantastic.
All right. Our previous guest, Brian Grubb, says you should watch The Fall Guy, which is on Peacock, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. But, Robert, first, it's time for business. It's time to play Everybody Knows. Here's how it works. Very simple. We've got a 10-question card of trivia that you'll have 60 seconds to answer. Braden will be reading you the questions. Seems like it's a difficult thing, 10 questions in a short period of time. The hook is all the questions are pretty easy. The name of the game is Everybody Knows. These are questions where the simple answer, the obvious answer, is going to be the right answer. So the way the game works is you're going to pick your opponent. You can either take on Annie or you can take on myself. That host will leave the studio. Braden will give you the 10-question quiz. Then studio host returns. He'll give that person the 10-question quiz. If you tie or beat your opponent, you are going to be qualified for our end-of-the-month grand prize drawing, a 2-night stay at Wynn or Encore Las Vegas, and 2 tickets to see the thrilling spectacle known as Awakening. Does all make sense, Robert?
It makes 100% perfect sense.
Outstanding. Good. With that clarity in mind, who would you like to take on today, Craig or Annie?
I will take on Annie.
Okay,
Annie?
Robert.
Annie is heading out of the studio.
Craig, when's the last time you played Everybody Knows?
I feel like I'm due up next. I think we've hit the 3 spot, right? We've got a mini rule within silly games that if any host has picked 3 straight times, they come off the board for at least sort of like if Robert Suarez pitches 3 straight times.
Yeah, you get a day off.
Yeah, you get a day off. So next Everybody Knows will be me. But this Everybody Knows is Robert versus Annie. Robert, good luck. Here we go with Braden.
All right, Robert, you got a minute on the clock to answer these 10 questions. If you need to pass for any reason, you could say pass, and we can move on. You got?
Got my scorecard ready to go.
All right. We'll start the clock when I ask you this first question. It's not really a question, it's more of a statement. Ouch! Your cat's claws are really this.
Sharp.
Sharp is
Gotta
correct. 1 for 1. The area next to the road, also a body part by the same name.
Shoulder.
Shoulder is correct, 2 for 2. Someone who follows all directions given to them.
Someone who followed. Pass for now.
Fair.
It could describe extreme, uncontrollable laughter.
Jubilant.
That's a good answer.
It's a good answer. We were looking for hysterical.
Okay, that makes sense.
To take a small mouthful of liquid like if it's hot.
Repeat question, please.
To take a small mouthful of liquid like if it's hot.
Slurp.
Sip.
We're looking for sip.
Sip.
What
Sip,
ice
sip.
cream flavors are together in Neapolitan ice cream?
Vanilla, chocolate, strawberry.
Vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry is correct. A small body of water known to have lilies and frogs.
Pond.
Pond is correct. People swim in this in-ground or above-ground container of water.
Pool.
Swimming pool is
Yes.
correct. What's another name for a person who works with stone or brick?
Mason.
A mason. To violently break something like the Hulk does would be to
Smash?
smash it.
And
Correct.
back to the one, question 3.
Someone who follows all directions given to him is
Compliant.
looking for obedient.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty close.
7 out of 10, Robert.
7 out of
Very
10
well
still
done.
pretty good.
Very well done. We'll see if Annie can beat you. I think a couple of those were a little bit trickier than I would have expected, including that last one. So,
That was more of like perspective.
yeah, I guess so.
Very perspective.
Yeah, fair enough.
We got to get you on camera, not on the back of the monitors. All
There we are.
good.
Okay. Annie is back. Annie Roberts' score is locked.
Okay, Robert.
Braden will be giving you the same 10 questions starting right now.
Well, 1 minute on the clock starts after this. Ouch! Your cat's claws are really
Sharp.
this. Sharp. They're really sharp. 1 for 1. Then area next to the road, also a body part by the same name.
What?
The area next to a road, also a body part by the same name. When you pull over to the...
Curb?
We're looking for shoulder.
Is your curb
Shoulder,
bone
shoulder.
connected to your
I don't know. Maybe I have
neck
a
bone?
curb that I don't know about.
Fair enough. Question 3. Question 3.
Someone who follows all directions given to him is...
Is a do-gooder?
Also a reasonable answer.
We're
I
looking
believe.
for obedient.
Obedient.
It could describe extreme, uncontrollable laughter.
Extreme uncontrollable laughter? Freaking out? Like
Looking for hysterical.
hysterical.
Hysterical laughter.
To take a small mouthful of liquid like if it's hot.
What?
What do you do with a hot drink?
You sip it.
Sip it.
There you go. There you go.
What ice cream flavors are together in Neapolitan ice cream?
Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry.
That is
Yeah.
correct. A small body of water known to have lilies and frogs.
A small body of water. A lake?
Lake is a
Smaller.
large body of water.
Water.
It would be a
A
pond.
pond.
It would be a
pond.
pond.
Ah, it's too late.
People swim in this in-ground or above-ground container of water.
Pool.
Yes.
A pool is correct. What's another name for a person who works with stone or brick?
A mason.
Mason is correct. To violently break something like the Hulk does.
To smash it.
Smash is
Final
correct.
score, Annie 7, Robert 7.
Oh!
Ties as good as a win, and everybody knows, Robert, you're a winner
Hey,
today.
you want an extra question? To see who
Yeah. No, Robert wins, but let's get the question.
wins? I'd have to go find an
Oh,
extra
never
question.
mind. Good job, Robert.
Great job, Robert. Appreciate you, man.
Still looking for my curb bone.
Robert, stay right there. We'll put you back on hold. Annie will, pardon me, Braden will get your information in the break.
Curb bones connected to the
Hip bone.
curb bone. Okay.
Hip bone's connected to the sidewalk bone.
Oh, man. Okay, Ryan in the chat has a production comment. He says, it is a miss to have Craig play the game next time. Change the name from Everybody Knows to Anybody Knows and always have Annie play.
I mean,
Ryan's signing you up to play.
I am a hit on this game.
You are a hit on this game. I mean, I lean Ryan on this.
Well,
I lean Ryan.
Craig is the only one that plays Mind the Gap.
Right.
so-
So this could be Annie's only
Craig's
game.
game is Mind the Gap. Andy's game is Everybody Knows. And you
Yeah.
guys both play
Would you be
Fast
sad,
Money.
though, if you don't get a chance to play it?
Well, look, I'm not going to lie. I'll be a little sad.
I mean, I
But
don't want to take that away from you.
But not very sad. Not very sad at all. Like, and I could always, if I really, really, really wanted to, grab one of those questions and just look at it and, you know. I mean, I like to
satisfy
compete.
that need.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I like to compete, but as Braden said, mind the gap. That's the game I play.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And then we both play Fast Money.
we both play Fast Money. Everybody plays the match game. So it's very fair. It's very
I'm
fair.
down.
Yeah. And do we change the game to Anybody Knows?
I think that's fair.
I think that's a great name.
Do you think I could brand that and get some luxury fee
Yes.
tax on it? You know?
Yes. T-shirt. Anybody Knows.
I think that they would
Merch.
sue me for copyright infringement for that.
Anybody,
that actually,
everybody. I think Annie, A-N-N-I. I think it works. I think you're
Same
clean.
game. We're using their cards.
We're literally using their cards, but it's Anybody Knows. I think that's great.
Okay.
Anybody
Change
knows.
it to the Mr. Horse game. That's Mr. Cow to
Mr.
you,
Cow.
Tyler.
Mr. Cow.
Not Mr. Horse, Mr.
Mm.
Cow.
It was some farm animal.
Mm-hmm.
Some Mr. Farm animal.
Well, I'm down.
All right.
All right, anybody knows.
Anybody knows.
I do like this game.
Yeah,
It is pretty fun.
it's a fun game. 7-7 today's score. Robert is the winner. And a special hat tip to Ryan in the chat for literally changing the show. Like, you just look at the power of the chat.
Yeah.
Power of the chat.
We're an
Power of
interactive show.
suggestion.
So
We are. We are susceptible to good suggestions. Sometimes the chat earlier today, not so much. But you bring something sharp, change the show. Just in the snap of a done. Anybody knows. It's a great and it was a great adjustment. Appreciate you. When we come back, we'll hit reset on our number one topic every day during the summer. That's Padres baseball. Padres and Mariners tonight at 6:40. Let's preview the M's. We did it back in June. It's a different team now in many ways. Let's find out those many ways when we come back with Annie and Elsten on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. for 97.3 The Fan's commercial-free Padres Roundtable featuring Ben and Woods, Annie and Elsten, and Gwen and Chris, presented by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. For takeout or delivery, go to roundtablepizza.com. Roundtable, the last honest pizza. Not the last honest segment, though. We're just going to keep it real, keep it 100 with you right here on Annie and Elsten. Okay, time for our team preview. Padres and Mariners go at it again. I just can't even get ginned up to get irrationally excited or upset about Vetter Cup. We got bigger fish to fry right now.
Oh no, the Vetter Cup is on the back burner.
I mean, listen, if
It's
we
not the priority.
if we can win 2 in Seattle, yes, we will not lose the Vetter Cup this year. We will draw the Vetter Cup.
Which means they get to keep it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Did we win it last year?
I don't think we did.
Means they get to keep it, yeah.
That's what I'm
so
saying.
they've already gotten to keep it. So it's over. But
It's Jover.
it would be a draw with both teams having 2 away wins. And then we'll go down to goal differential and then eventually penalty kicks to decide the Vetter Cup.
I don't think we win any of those.
Tatis
I don't
shooting
either.
on Andres Munoz.
Well, if that's the case, we're definitely scoring.
Who would be Profar had the soccer jersey. Would he be the best soccer player on the
Profar
team?
and Tatis like to play.
I think Fernando would be the best player.
Xander likes to play. There's quite a few guys in there that like to play. I think
Who's our most athletic player? on the
Profar
team?
would probably be the best soccer player.
I think Tatis would be way better.
Okay, yeah, you're probably right.
Who's the most athletic player, right?
Yeah.
Tatis, yeah.
Because whatever, like if he played soccer, he'd be.
And Tatis played when he was younger. And you know who played a lot of soccer was Jackson Merrill. He was a big soccer player until his dad didn't make him play anymore in high school.
I would like to see the
And-
ball at Jackson's feet.
He said that he didn't like it. He wasn't into soccer. He did it because his dad made him. And he said that he was good at shooting. He hated dribbling.
Yeah.
I was like, does the footwork help you at all? Like maybe out in center field, a little coordination, a little athleticism.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe.
That's hilarious.
So definitely Fernando then.
Yeah,
Fernando.
Fernando.
Fernando for
Profar's
top
up there in
player.
age now, so is Bogarts.
I feel like Kim would be a pretty good soccer player. He'd just probably get the ball out in front of him too much, like have a heavy touch. And He'd be
Profar played
flying down the
growing up.
wing.
Like a lot of these guys played growing up.
Yeah. I agree with Boogie, though. I think Kim, flying down the wing, flying down the right wing. I think Kim would be a pretty good little midfielder.
Padres
your
went
team.
1-3 last year to Seattle. They went 1-3 against Seattle in 2022.
This is the 3rd straight Vetter Cup we've lost?
Yeah, I think so.
How does AJ keep his job?
This is like the division.
Just bottom line. How does
Dodgers.
AJ keep his job? We've lost 3 Vetter Cups in a row.
In 2021, they swept the Vetter Cup.
Well, that's
3-0.
more like it. That's more like
But
it.
aside from that, yeah, that's 3 in a row. They gotta. If they win twice in Seattle, they'd break the 1-3, 3 straight in a row curse. Seattle's
go.
owned us.
Let's go. All right, let's talk about the real team as opposed to putting them into penalty kicks.
Although that is kind of fun.
I would
It's
like to
actually
see it.
quite fun.
Right.
It's actually quite fun. In the spirit of Brian Grubb being on the show earlier, this is a fun little mental diversion we could do to waste time for 10 minutes that's enjoyable as opposed to depressing. I very much liked his philosophical attitude. Like, hey, I'm just going to come on for 10 to 12 minutes of good time. And then, we'll see what happens. Okay. Offensively, you would not be surprised to know that the Padres are the 7th rated offense. I'm looking at Fangraphs and offensive WAR generated. The Padres are the 7th rated offense in Major League Baseball. The Mariners, well, they're 17th in WAR generated. They're not the actual bottom of the pack. Unsurprisingly, the bottom of the pack is
The White Sox.
the White Sox. They actually have negative WAR for the year.
Ooh, ouch.
-6 WAR.
Ouch.
Well, they don't win a lot of games. So
Right.
How can you have a wins above replacement if you don't win?
Right, and if all the replacements would be better than you,
Yeah, that's right.
I guess that just shows you that WAR makes sense. Okay, so that's the story there. But now let's switch it to something more basic as opposed to WAR. Let's talk about runs. Seattle has scored 588 runs this year. That is the 6th fewest in big league baseball. 588 runs. The Padres have scored 690. runs. So they've scored over 100 more runs than Seattle has this year. Let's talk strikeouts. Seattle leads Major League Baseball, 1,461 strikeouts this year. The Padres are the only team in baseball to not have struck out 1,000 times yet. They're at 944 strikeouts. So one team dramatically puts the ball in play more than the other. How about for Pop? Well, San Diego is 12th in the big leagues in homers at 167. Seattle not far behind, 161. So about the same power
Okay.
between these two teams this year. How about walks? Well, Seattle draws walks. They are 4th in the league in walks, 505 walks. The Padres are 23rd in the league in walks, 416 walks. Why is that going to matter? I don't think it necessarily will, because the Mariners starters, Annie, are by and large a group of control pitchers. George Kirby, who the Padres face tonight, is a guy who is relentlessly around the zone. So while I would normally be like, okay, well, this is a little bit of an advantage for Seattle, we've got strike throwers on our side, and they've got extreme strike throwers on their side. What I expect to see tonight is Kirby to go one of two ways. Way number one is to pitch a Logan Webb style game where he gives up a few hits, gets some ground balls that turn into double plays, and pitches effectively. And by the way, if he does that, George Kirby will finish 7 innings tonight because his pitch count will be low, because he's an extreme strike thrower, and the Padres usually swing at strikes when strikes are in the zone. By contrast, the other way it could go would be for George Kirby to give up a whole bunch of hits in the and last 4 or 5 innings and give up 5 or 6 runs. If he's around the zone too much, the Padres have the type of swings, as a group that I think could handle this guy.
And look, it could happen. I mean, Kirby has a 3.61 ERA over the season, 11-10, but he's got a 5.70 ERA over his last 7 starts. Although he did strike out 9 over 6 innings of 2-run ball, but it was against Oakland last week. So are you getting a George Kirby that is maybe fatiguing a little bit? Are you getting someone who, like you said, maybe leaves a little in the zone where he doesn't want him, right? Doesn't always hit the spot that he wants. I think it's a pretty good matchup, especially for, like you said, the Padres hitters who are generally aggressive and tend to like to do damage early on if they can, right? First time through the lineup if possible. I think for this Mariners team, what is something to watch too is like they are outside of the playoffs right now, but they still hold on to the possibility of getting in. And when you are in that place, sometimes you're a little desperate, right? Like you press a little too much. You try to do too much. You feel that pressure mounting on you. Some teams can handle that really well, and other teams like the Mariners, we'll see, but they've been in a rough spot since the All-Star break. I think a little bit better since, and this has nothing to do with Scott's service, just a little bit better since they switched, their manager, but that has nothing to do with him. That's just, baseball-y things.
Baseball-y things. I'm trying to find their high water mark for the year, and I believe it's 14 games over 500. So at one point, the Mariners were 14 games over 500, and since then, boy, they've played to about 10 games under 500.
And they're 9-7 once they switched again. I don't like to say they're 9-7 since their last 9-7 games. The last 16 games, they're 9-7.
They're 9-7,
and their last 9-7 games.
I had to add it really fast in my head.
It's only
16.
Tuesday, Annie. This is like
this is the 1 o'clock hour. She
Yes,
has warned us.
Yes,
It's true.
She has warned us. It's true. And yeah, 13 games over 500 is the highest they got. They got to 44-31. So that means since then, the team has won 29 games and lost 40. 29-40 in their last 69 games.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that tells you the direction that the Seattle Mariners have been going for a while. They're down to 11% Fangraph odds to make the playoffs. And what has gone wrong for this team? What's gone wrong is that really nothing's gone right for the Mariners offensively. They
got at some trade deadline acquisitions,
Yes.
right? They got Randy Rosarena. They got, I think, someone else.
Well, they got a Rosarena, and a Rosarena, since he's come to the Mariners, is hit 244. He has walked. He's got a 368 on base percentage, but he's got 4 home runs. So he's been okay. You know what I mean? Like he's
but
been
not the guy that they were hoping to get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No 900 OPS,
Yeah.
no real drama. He's just kind of been there.
And how many times have we seen that happen at a trade deadline, right?
Yeah. Julio Rodriguez has a slugging percentage under 400 for the year. And he's played all year. He's got only 14 homers after being such a dynamic power hitter last year for the Mariners. Looking around, Mitch Garver has played the whole year for them. He's hitting 168 for the season. Mitch Haniger, 208 with 12 homers. J.P. Crawford, everyday shortstop, 198 average. He was their
That's
leadoff.
tough.
He was their leadoff man the
Yeah.
last time we faced them. Jorge Polanco, they brought him over from the Twins, thought he would be a major addition to their offense. He's at 204 with 14 homers on the year.
They're kind of going through on a different level what the Padres went through a little bit last year, right? Like with the offense, just guys not having some of their best numbers or some of their career high numbers or doing kind of what you expected them to do consistently throughout the year. But this will be for the Mariners, especially if they don't make the playoffs, which I think it's a tough call, a tough ask for them, but who knows, right? Still a few weeks in the season left. But for the Mariners, you'll look back at the season and you will feel like, man, what could have been with the incredible pitching they've had. If you just could have, if some of these guys that you just know typically have better numbers year after year would have just hit to like their average, you know? But they've all been below.
What makes the Mariners scary is that they don't have a bad starter in their rotation.
Yeah.
So today,
That's what's kept them in it.
Today you get Kirby. Kirby is actually right there with Castillo for the highest ERA on the team, but it's 3.6. 3.61. 164 hits in 167 innings. The thing about Kirby is extreme control. He's walked 21 batters in 167 innings. He's a David Wells level control pitcher. Just won't walk guys.
Yeah.
I personally think that's a good fit against the Padres.
Who don't like to walk anyways.
And who are always attacking around the plate. As long as they can differentiate between the pitcher's strike and their strike, they should have success. If they just get into the habit of swinging at the pitcher's strike, Kirby will be in the dugout with 5 innings at 46 pitches.
Yeah. But you're right. It's a team that likes to make contact. If they can find those pitches, they're going to have their chance.
They absolutely will. Every one of the Mariners starters are somewhat home run prone. Kirby's given up 20. Gilbert's given up 20. Miller's given up 20. Castillo's given up 25. The only guy who's really kept the ball in the yard is tomorrow's starter, Brian Wu.
I think that goes back to the original point that you were making earlier today, which is how will Yu Darvish be? You know, and if Yu Darvish can keep that home run ball in the yard, you know, and not give too many of those up, then I think Yu has a nice shot to have a nice start today.
The bullpen for the Mariners, of course, is anchored by the former Padre, the guy we gave up in the Austin Nola trade, Andres Munoz. He's got 19 saves. He's blown 5 this year, pardon me. They'll often use him in multi-inning work. Also, he missed a little bit of time, so he's only at 52 innings. There's no one else in their bullpen that's stunning in terms of their work. Colin Snyder has pitched 35 games with a low ERA of 130. Everyone else is kind of mid-threes, not exactly a bullpen, not the same as the bullpen they'll be facing, where you are petrified if that bullpen door opens up.
And a bullpen that is going to be very rested coming off of this off day yesterday.
Correct. Here's the guy I'm going to have my eye on, and maybe this is just old PTSD, but did you realize, Padre fans, that also at the deadline, the Mariners got Justin Turner? They do.
Oh, I forgot about Justin Turner.
You can't forget about Red Turn.
How's he doing?
Well, he's doing okay.
Okay.
He's not doing great. He's hitting 252 for the season with an OPS plus of 107. But I was just going to his career stats against the San Diego Padres. Oh, yes, there it is. 293 hitter with 26 homers, 366 on base, 880 OPS in 134 games against the Padres. This guy has always hurt us. So Justin Turner is somebody that I'm worried about if he's at the plate with runners in scoring position. If he's at the plate without runners in scoring position, I am not worried about him at all. Cal Raleigh has 29 homers out of the catcher spot. Switch hitting catcher. He doesn't hit for an average at all.
It's homer or bust.
It's homer or bust. I mean, he's a Gary Sanchez type player, but just with even more power and a switch hitter. So, Cal Raleigh could very easily go 0 for 8 in this series. Probably should. But when he gets a hold of one, we're going to see 2 or 3 runs on the board. The absolute key for this team is just hold down the on-base percentage. Do not let any base runners on for Seattle. Don't let them run into a 3-run homer, because this is basically a team of 12 homer hitters. A bunch of guys with 12, 14, 18, 10 homers that they can get you. But if you hold down the on-base percentage, they're going to be punching out all the time. They don't do well with runners in scoring position. You just want to avoid the big fly, and you should be in great shape.
Yeah, don't let them kill you with the long ball. But I also look at, it is going to be interesting to look at that lineup and see, is Solano in there? How do they utilize their catching core over these next few weeks now that we saw Elias Diaz get into a game last week? Because I think, too, right, the Padres will work the counts. So if they'll foul you off for 10 pitches until they can get one that they like, typically. So if they can get a little of that going, then and work those counts. And you do have a guy like Solano in the lineup who, a lot of these guys are really good in those situations. Could turn out pretty well for them tonight.
Agreed. I'm looking at just a couple of things, right? I'm looking at avoid the big fly, no unnecessary base runners, keep an eye on Justin Turner. Turner's a guy you just have to keep marked.
He is one of those that he does damage against the Padres, for sure.
Just finds a way.
Yeah.
Finds a way.
He's a pest.
And how do our starting pitchers perform? If Yu Darvish, against this weakened lineup, can find his way, 5 or 6 innings, 1 run, Padres are in incredible shape to win. The Mariners aren't an offensive team. But if you go out there and struggle and you do what this team has been doing the last 3-4 weeks, which is put the team in a 4-0 hole and then see if they can dig out of it, well, the Mariners are a great team to lose to if you spot them 4 or 5 runs. You're going to lose those games when you give them 4 or 5 runs. Where you're going to beat them is taking a 2-0 lead, taking a 3-1 lead, because they have a whale of a time coming from behind. So this is a very straightforward, almost soccer style, score, take the lead, you're good. You fell behind. This is problematic. We know the Padres are better at this than other teams, but still, you want to play clean, as Chad says in the chat. You want to play clean. These 2 games, clean games, will get you 2 wins in Seattle.
Yeah, exactly. And the base running blunders, any kind of, defensive miscues, you just, at this point in the season too, you don't want to be, those happen from time to time. Everyone's human, but you definitely don't want to be giving too many of those up because, like you said, everybody's still kind of fighting for something, or if they're not, then they're still trying to spoil things or end the season on somewhat of a good note. So you don't want to give anything away in this one. It's a quick two game series. You're with an off day, by the way, on Thursdays. So it's off day, 2 games, off day. So for this team, go in, if you can go in and take both of them, have an off day before you head to San Francisco, or, when you're in San Francisco, that's going to be a nice position for them to be in. Now you get the bullpen rested again, able to go out and attack those next 3 games.
Boy, that's just such a great point. Mike Schilt should have carte blanche to use his bullpen these 2 days. He should be able to use and abuse.
Right. This isn't like last week where he still had to balance, 4 or 5 games after they were used quite a bit, and that also speaks to what you were just saying. As much as those come from behind wins are super fun and they're exciting, let's, like you said, let's maybe take some of that pressure off of the pitching staff, even though they've got those off days, get out to a good start and you don't even have to worry about it.
These 2 games are huge for San Diego. I think today is a much-win game. I think this is a circle game. Like, you need this one. You lose this one, you've dropped 3 in a row, you've dropped 4 out of 5. That's not where you want to be. That's not where you want to be.
Katie says 2 night games. No sunglasses. No, 2 night games. And very similar weather, similar start time.
Yes. Take care of business.
Yeah.
Stand on business, Padres. Stand on business the next 2 nights. You're going to be in incredible shape. We're going to have such a happy roundtable on Thursday if you stand on business the next 2 nights. Okay, there's your preview. Sam Levitt will get you even more locked in at 5:40 with the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. And then it's Jesse and Tony with a call at 6:40 this evening from Seattle. When we come back, our final segment of the show, it's called Ask Us Anything. This is where we open up the lines to you. 833-288-0973 is our number. 833-288-0973. We invite you to call the show. It's 1:38 right now. We'll take your calls for the next 12 minutes. So if you dial us between here and 1:50, we're going to get you on the air. The only thing you need to do is come prepared with a question to ask the show. Doesn't have to be about sports even. It can be, or it can be about anything else. Hence the name of the segment, Ask Us Anything. We'll do it next. Annie and Elsten wrapping things up after a quick timeout. Give us a call at 833-288-0973 here on 97.3 The Fan. All right, wrapping up the show. 1:45 is the time. Great to have you with us this afternoon. Appreciate y'all being out there. We'll be back with you tomorrow from 10 till 2. Another 4-hour program. Thursday, we'll have the roundtable to get things started commercial-free from 10 to 11. By that point, 2 games against the Mariners will be in the rearview mirror, and there will be 15 games left in the season.
I can't even. That is just,
I know.
It's crazy. And, I keep thinking, as many probably do, I do believe that the Padres will make the postseason. Of course, nothing is guaranteed. But so it almost feels like you're just getting to that point a little bit. But 15 games left in the regular season is from where we were just a few months ago.
I know. I feel like a broken record, but I still remember sitting on a 2-3 no-limit table waiting for 3 a.m.
Right.
at 7 Mile Casino for Game 1. And
would you say it's moved quickly or slow? I think there are times that it went really quickly, and then there are times that the season goes real slowly, and then all of a sudden you look up and you have 15 games left.
But in our job, where we have our head down, we're in the deep dive every day. It feels fast.
It does.
It feels fast.
And you don't know. Hopefully they'll get some home games, but you don't know that they will, right? So one more homestand at Petco Park. So there's a lot of kind of not finalities, but just end of season things happening.
End of season things happening. End of show things are happening, like this bumper being played on Annie and Elsten. (833-288-0973) is the number to use. Several people have called the show. They are on hold now, and we are going to them now. Let's start things off with our guy Magic. Hi, Magic. Ask us anything, buddy.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi,
Doing great.
Magic.
How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing great.
Hey guys, I was out of town all last week, so I never got a chance to listen to you guys' show. But I got a question. With the uncertainty with the injury to Ha-Seong Kim, and it looks like the Pods are going to lean to play Solano more. I mean, there's a great outside chance that Padre fans may not see him play for the Padres again. I mean, and that could be a realism. And if that is said, what do you think the Padres do? Do they not pursue him in the offseason and they let him walk? What do you guys think?
Great question, Magic. As always, thanks for calling and asking it. The first part, I mean, we don't know, but it is possible Kim's played his last game for the Padres.
It is. It's possible, and kind of shocking if you think about it that way, right? Because Kim's been such a piece of this team since he arrived in San Diego, and such a big piece over those playoff runs. But I think it's going to be hard for them to hold on to him financially. I think he's going to be able to get a better contract with the Padres' finances that they have. Probably walking. Yeah,
as point of fact, the two sides have a mutual option for $8 million for this year, and I'm sure the Padres would happily accept that option.
Yes.
And I'm equally sure that Kim will reject that option because he's going to be able to get more than that on the open market. In fact, I was on with Marty Lurie on CanBR Saturday, and when he brought up Kim, it was prefaced with a lot of folks in San Francisco think this is going to be our shortstop next year.
And his best friend is already on the Giants.
That's it. They don't have, they got the kid Tyler Fitzgerald, but they don't look at him as a defensive player.
Bob Melvin also loved Ha-Seong Kim.
Absolutely. And vice versa. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, not that I want it, to see Kim become a Giant next year. And if he's not a Giant, I think LA is going to ask about him too. I really do. I think two teams in the division are going to be looking at Kim next year. Doesn't mean they couldn't sign him, but we've talked so much about all the other contracts in the team. It'd be pretty hard to lock up Ha-Seong Kim to a long-term deal.
It's not that they. I don't think it's not that they wouldn't want to, and I think both sides would want it. So maybe there's a possibility that they can make something happen, but they just have a lot of constraints and other needs as well.
Let's go to Tony in San Diego. Hi, Tony. Ask us anything.
Hey, what's up, guys? How we doing?
Doing wonderful, man.
You know what? I know it's toward the end of the season and all that, but why can't we put the letter embroidered a letter C patch on Manny Machado's number 13?
Great question, Tony.
Hockey players and football players have the C all over,
Yep.
And why can't we? That would boost the morale, I would think, on the team and get them ready for the playoffs. I would think.
I love the
So
idea.
seeing that
Tony.
letter C as the captain.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, and listen, I literally have a T-shirt that Annie has seen that says "Give Manny the C," with him looking like a ship captain at
How
the
many
wheel.
teams have that besides
Not
New
very many.
York? I mean, besides the Yankees, right?
Yeah, not very many. Usually, baseball teams don't have a captain.
Right.
Usually, when they get a captain, it's a player just like Manny Machado, somebody who is the undisputed leader of the team that's on a long-term deal that isn't going anywhere, and that's Manny. That's Manny to a T. So. Maybe last year there was some question about that. I think this year there's very little question. And the only thing, Tony, that I would say as a small pushback is, and that's a good one from
That's a
Chad.
good one, Chad, yeah.
Salvador Perez in Kansas City wears the C. It's usually something that's done at the beginning of a season.
Yeah, or after at the beginning of the season, and maybe when the season ends, and maybe it ends in a way that they would want to do that at some point.
Yeah, so I would love to see that basically next spring training. But it's not usually something that's done midstream, anywhere in the stream. Usually it's something you do right at the beginning of the year. And, of course, different sports have different cultures. Like in hockey, you have to have a captain, an alternate, and another alternate. Like every team has a captain and two alternates, and they'll wear the C and the A's.
Oh.
But in other sports, no. Of course, a soccer team has to designate a captain for every match.
It's different?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the same captain,
Okay.
but you have to have a captain, and that person is the only person who can speak to the referee,
Oh.
can actually engage the referee. I mean, you can speak to him, but you can't engage. The captain has that responsibility.
Yeah.
And when the captain is subbed out, like when Alex Morgan subbed out, she took off her captain's armband and she gave it to Kaylin Sheridan because there has to be a captain at all times in soccer. Here's Omar in Marietta. Hi, Omar. Ask us anything.
Yeah, hi guys. How you doing?
Doing great, buddy.
Good. I just want to talk about Mason McCoy. Do you guys think he'll make any more starts going down the stretch? And if so, do you think that reflects poorly on Xander Bogaerts' team first attitude, just with the lineup strength?
I think it's a good question, Omar. And, we talked about this earlier in the show, Annie, but I think we were all on board with the Padres' general direction, which could be boiled down as if Kim's going to be out 10 days, just let Mason McCoy handle short. And I literally said that. You said it. I said it. Like, if it's going to be 10 days, let Mason McCoy handle short. You're not disrupting because you're going to change three people's positions when you move Bogaerts. You're not going to change one person's position. You're going to move Bogaerts, then you're going to move Cronenworth into Bogaerts' spot, and then you're going to move someone into Cronenworth's spot. So it's a lot of change around the infield. For 10 days, you don't want to do it. But if it's going to be the rest of the year, you do want to do it. And I think the fact, Annie, that tone has changed in the clubhouse is directly related to Kim fielding grounders and not being able to hump it over to first.
Yeah, and I don't think it has anything to do with Xander Bogaerts not being a team guy. He is the quintessential team guy. I mean, he exudes team. If you're around him at all, you see that among him and the way that he is with his teammates. This is more, I think, for him, making sure that he's good down the stretch, able to give the team everything that he's got. And I think that ultimately, again, like Craig mentioned, I think ultimately if they have an understanding that Kim's going to be out and it seems like they do, I think Xander really starts to consider making that move to get Solano back in that lineup.
Brandon in the chat says, what's your Starbucks order, seeing as the Padres are in Seattle?
Get an iced coffee right now with one pump of pumpkin spice.
I usually just get a venti Americano, but if I'm splurging, it's a peppermint mocha.
Black coffee.
Wow, peppermint mocha. Fun fact, used to work at Starbucks.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Me,
Think about it tomorrow.
black coffee every time. That's it. Just black coffee. And that's it for the show. Annie and Elsten, Gwen and Chris are next. Go Pods!
Bye.